It was awesome, and it's an awesome morning here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Andrew Rogers with me as well. What's up, Andrew?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good.
Good weekend?
We are on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities as well, Twitter, YouTube, all the places. Just find us, hang out with us today. Yeah, it was a good weekend. Was out here on Saturday watching the game, doing post-game with Jared from the No Block, No Rock crew. That was fun.
Is a hilarious personality.
Oh, yeah. So we watched the game together back in the boss's booth and then did the post game.
Upgraded.
Well, yeah.
It's like VIP over there.
It is. We're trying to
they
do
just
things.
bringing you guys drinks and
a lot of
bottle service, right? Yeah.
A lot of Diet
in
Coke.
The boss's booth.
A lot of Diet Coke over there. No, we had a good time hanging out and watching Nebraska get a win, a third win.
Yeah, who cares how it looks?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're going to get to that because I'm about fed up with people complaining already.
Amen.
Like, listen, I know it's not pretty, and we'll get to the reasons it's not pretty, and that's fine.
We don't even have to discuss them. We won.
But
Nebraska won.
Not just did they win, okay? It is the first 3-game winning streak since 2016. That is 7 freaking years ago. That's a long time. Nebraska is 1 win away from bowl eligibility. They went undefeated in October for the first time since 2001. 22 years since they've swept October.
Hey, guess what Matt Rule says? Doesn't matter. 1-0 next week.
1-0 next. Like, this is a reason to be happy. It feels like every Nebraska fan has just gotten out of, and I said this on the post-game spread, has just gotten out of like a toxic relationship. And like, for example, not to throw my wife under the bus here, the guy she dated before me, like she had this thing where he didn't like take her out or pay for her on her birthday or whatever. Like, she just wanted to go out to a dinner and like, he's like, yeah, we can go, but we got to like go splitsies here. Which, like, most days she's fine, but it's like, hey, it's my birthday, like, can we, whatever. But he had gone to Kansas City with a friend, like, the week before, and so he didn't have any money left. And so when we first started going out, she was, like, astounded by the fact that not only did I pay for a lot of things, but in terms of, like, when we go out to eat or whatever, but when it came for her birthday to be around, like, I
split the bill too.
Yeah, I was like Dutch all the way. No, I tried to make a plan and like we went out to eat and stuff. And obviously I paid for it. And she was just like shell shocked by this like very small gesture, in my opinion. Right.
She's like, oh, this is how guys operate.
Like, this is
outside of my
like the bar was on the floor to clear. Right. And I feel like Nebraska fans are dealing with some of the same like relationship PTSD here, where they just got out of a bad relationship with their former coach. But it's a little bit worse than the situation I described with my wife and her ex, right? Because Nebraska hasn't gotten to the point yet where they're like, oh, this is nice. They just are still waiting for the bad thing to happen. Right? We need to get to the point where they're like, oh, he's going to pay for my birthday dinner. That's nice. We're not quite there. It seems like a lot of Nebraska fans, I'm there with this staff. I'm like, listen, it's going to be ugly. Birthday dinner might be at Chipotle rather than like a fancy restaurant. We don't have the budget right now, but he's paying. I know that for sure. That's where I feel like Nebraska football is at. And Nebraska football fans haven't quite got to the point where they're being expected to go splitsies with them at Taco Bell.
Right, right. That could be. I'm thinking more on the point when you said they're waiting for the bad thing to happen. I don't know if that's really it, because with the way this team is winning right now and ending with W's, I think the worry of waiting for the bad thing to happen is fading. And people aren't like sitting back and thinking, oh, we're going to lose. It's more oh my gosh, why do we look so bad in portions of this game? So now the point of view for this season is different from seasons before because the team's actually winning. Mm-hmm. So you have a team where it's like, like this could be so much better. Like you're almost trying to like teach from the couch. Like this could look so much better. That play call could be better on offense. This could be done in a more efficient way. But those are the things people are bringing up now over the I'm sweating out this game. I'm sweating out this win.
So I agree with you there, but I think, and this is, I'm trying to go a little, armchair psychologist here on people's fandom, which is always a little dangerous. But I think the reason they're doing that is because what we're seeing on the field previously translated to losses. And so I think they're looking at that and they can't
offensively.
Yes, for sure. But even like 2021, that defense was pretty good in 2021. It wasn't as good as this year's team, I don't think, but that defense was pretty good in 2021. The offense was actually pretty good in 2021. They just found a way to lose games constantly, right? But
then you have to look about their opponents too, and their opponents' teams were better than what they look like today.
But I think fans see the mistakes. I think they see the turnovers, the untimely errors, things like that, and they're waiting. It's too similar to what the losses looked like under the previous regime that they can't really enjoy it when it happens in a win. And I think there's a little bit of they're a little gun shy because they're like, hey, I know if you keep playing football like this, you're not going to keep winning. And that's probably fair to be true. Like you can't continue to play football like this and expect to win on a year in, year out basis. But I'm not expecting it to look like this next year. I don't think anybody is. I know Matt Rule's not, right? I'm sitting here thinking, okay, because there's another way to look at that. You can sit here and say, hey, if you keep playing like this, you're going to lose. And that's probably true. But you can also sit here and say, okay, they're playing like this and they're finding ways to win. How much better is it going to be when they clean these things up? Because that's where I'm at.
I believe that's the definition of progress.
Absolutely.
Obviously, I want to win.
Like that's where I'm at is, okay, they're not even playing good football yet and they're still finding ways to win. You know how exciting that is to me? Like this team has played, like 2021 is a great example. And because it's really recent and most people remember it. And it is the exact opposite of what's happening now. For like 90% of those games, Nebraska looked like they were playing really good football. And they still ended up losing. Nebraska's having more mistakes now than they had in a lot of the Scott Frost losses. Like they just are. And the crazy thing is, they're still coming out with wins.
And a lot of that more is that defense, because your defense
puts
is
you incredible.
In position to win these games.
And bails you out of positions where you're trying to lose the game.
And that's kind of where I'm leaning with this. You open up the game and you give Purdue the football on your own 30. You fumble away a kick return, and boom, Purdue's in scoring position. Yet what happens next? They don't even get a field goal opportunity.
They get nothing.
Because your defense puts so much pressure on Hudson Card and the Purdue Boilermakers that they set Purdue's offense back so far that what do they have to do next? They have to punt. They have to get the football back.
I think they turned it over on downs on that first one.
Was it?
I think they went for it on fourth. But yeah,
regardless,
because they pushed them so far out that they didn't want to attempt a field goal.
That's exactly because of the wind.
Yes.
You're absolutely right.
And then they went for it on fourth down, and they didn't get it. It was fourth and short. It was fourth and 1 or 2, and boom, the defense comes through again.
But those are moments that have been happening all season long, and so that's why I'm still going to go back to my previous point of I don't think fans sit at home and think, oh my gosh, we're going to lose because of all these turnovers, because this is what I've seen in the past. I think it's just more of why can't we be better? Because
oh my gosh, yes,
team is so good defensively. Why can't this offense be better? And that's even a question that not really a question, a statement Nathan brings up on YouTube. Nathan says, I just have a hard time why the defense plays lights out, but the offense plays so sloppy. But guys, remember, this isn't the offense.
Yeah, none of these guys are supposed to be playing.
That came into the season.
None of these guys are supposed to be playing.
This offense is so broken and chewed up and spit out that now you have to, replace with a lot of the young guys that you weren't expecting to even see this year.
No.
Like maybe Malachi Coleman, right? Maybe Malachi forgoes his red shirt.
Yeah.
And you see him for a majority of the year. But you don't expect that out of Jaden Doss. You don't expect that out of Jalen Lloyd. You don't expect that out of Emmett Johnson, right? These are guys that you weren't even expecting to see, yet who's the number one wide receiver? either Malachi or Jalen right now.
Yeah.
Who's your number one running back?
Emmett
Johnson. That's just what this offense is today.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though it doesn't look pretty, even though it doesn't look nice, it doesn't look appealing at all.
No.
I'm with you.
No.
What this defense does for you is allow you to win games by scoring 17 points on offense.
Yeah.
Now, in this case, 31 points, but your defense gave you a touchdown.
Yeah, so it was 24 offensive points. Yeah.
Your defense allows you to win Big Ten football games. I'm not going to say this defense allows you to win an SEC football game or a Pac-12 football game, but this defense allows you to win games within your division.
Well, and I know that people get kind of, and I've heard whether it's on, other programs, like podcasts or on Twitter or just talking to people, like I know there's a little bit of a hesitation because they're going, kind of like you're saying, like, I don't know how translatable this is to other. It's like, hey, beat the teams on your schedule first and foremost. Second, it seems like we are both traumatized by and forgetting the very recent history of Nebraska losing these exact games to these exact teams. It's not like Northwestern and Illinois and Purdue outside of last year have been world beaters, right? Minnesota is the same team Minnesota's been. Northwestern's better than they have been the last 3 years.
And Northwestern got another one.
That's what I mean. Like Northwestern's dramatically better than they were the last 3 years.
Northwestern may be in a bowl game.
I think they will be. I mean, they're 4-4. This is not crazy, right? So I understand that none of these teams are playing for a national title. I understand none of these teams have a prayer of beating whoever the East sends over in the Big Ten championship game. But these are the exact same teams Nebraska was losing to the last 5 to 6 years. This is not like, this is progress. I don't care what the schedule says. I don't care what it looks like. This is progress because these exact teams have been beating Nebraska for the last 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
These are the teams you have to beat. You have to beat these teams before you can hope to beat the Michigans, Ohio State, Penn States, or the non-conference teams or the Pac-12 teams that are going to come over. Unless you can start by beating the Big Ten West teams, like what are you even talking about those teams for? And yeah, this style of football, this level of football probably doesn't beat some of those teams. But guess what? You weren't beating these teams last year, so this is a good step in the right direction.
And I think it's okay to be critical too, because even Rule said after the game, some people will question who we play, right? Because that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about how, yes, you'll beat teams in the Big Ten West, but will you beat teams outside of the Big Ten West? Well, outside of non-con opponents. But I don't think that's really what people are questioning right now. What I think it boils down to is people are only questioning play calling, not who you play, but the play calling. And there was one moment in this game that I just could not believe they went back to back with Harburg. So I think it was in the fourth quarter, maybe it was early in the fourth quarter. Harburg gets rocked.
Yeah.
Absolutely clobbered.
Yes.
In the back, like 7 yards deep, looking to throw. He was
on a screen. He kind of scrambled to the outside on a throw and was trying to keep his eyes downfield. There was a Purdue player coming from the flat that he just never saw. He looked like he was staring right at him, but I'm pretty sure his eyes were trying to find a receiver. Never saw him. Gets him under the chin strap, like smokes Harburg.
Like he got hit by a bus.
Yeah, he got crushed.
So what do you run next? What I would think you'd do,
hand the ball off,
is you just run a simple halfback draw play.
Yeah, just hand the ball off.
If that's really like the direction you wanted to go, that's what you run. No, let's run the option. Well, what does Harburg do when he runs the option?
Gets smoked again and
he
fumbles.
Doesn't toss the football.
Yeah.
How? What? Maybe 10% of the time, dude tosses the football.
That seems high, but yeah.
And every other time, it looks like he's a cruise ship trying to make a turn on open water.
Yeah.
Right? Or maybe mix that up with the guy playing Pokemon Go, keeping his head stuck in one direction and not seeing what else is happening around him.
Yeah.
Shane, will you play the clip that you gathered coming in today, rule number 5, for me, please?
I mean, it's an option pass. He has some pressure. He throws the ball away and snaps the next snap. Like it's not that hard. Like he can do it. He shouldn't stand there and take that hit. Their kid didn't. Their kid ran out and threw the ball out of bounds. So We're working through with Heinrich all the time to get to where we want to get him to get. He has to execute those plays and get the ball out of bounds, right? I'm sitting there going, throw it out of bounds. Like, why take a sack for 7 yards? And I'm not criticizing him. I'm just, I just can't live in a world where everything is like, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Like, we gotta go play, right? Like, good teams play, and bad things happen, and like we gotta go play. So if I don't want the players to live in that whole what if world and being what is, then we have to be that. Now, that being said, like, we have to run the option. Like, I think I didn't come here to have people say, well, why are you running the option so much? We ran the option on the last drive. Like, that's what we're gonna do. Like, Eric Krause told me, he said, hey, we had 49. He said, hey, Matt, you hear about, we had 49 fumbles in 1999. So just keep coaching and playing. So, I mean, just everything can't be negative, right? Like, I'm saying that from you, Sean. I'm saying for me, I got to go out there and be like, hey, guys, but there's part of it is growing as a quarterback. Throw the ball away. Like, there's no reason to come off the field with your nose bloody. Like, you're running the option, you go to pitch it, you don't stop and just take a huge hit. Like, you get up, so we're just coaching him all the way through it. He looked kind of bloody, so I put Jeff in.
So the fact is, he didn't throw it away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what you have to realize in this moment as a coach. Like, yes, Coach Rule is saying, like, he should have thrown the ball away, and that shouldn't change how you operate on offense going forward. But the fact is, he didn't throw the ball away.
Mm-hmm.
He got rocked. So as a coach, you have to adjust to that.
Yeah.
You have to acknowledge the fact that he didn't do what was expected of him in that moment. So you can't put him in another position to be in a scenario where he gets hit hard. Like, you just have to move on from that. I understand what Coach is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the game just can't stop because of one big hit,
mm-hmm.
right? And he should have made the play to avoid what happened next. But as a coach, you also have to adjust to the player not making the play. And that's not what happened in that moment. What happened was, yes, the thought process is, no, we're not going to change routine. We're going to keep running the option because that's what we do well as an offense,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how we get first downs. But in order to protect your guy in that moment, adjust for one play.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with that. That was honestly the only time I had a big problem with the play calling was like, hey, he got rocked pretty good there. If you still want to run an option, go ahead and put Sims out
But the
there.
reason you say that too is Nebraska was winning.
Yeah, they were.
If Nebraska was losing in that moment, there would probably be some other things that you could go back on and nitpick.
Probably, but I look at, kind of the final stats, and the passing attempts are right in the range of where I wanted them to be. I've been clamoring for like 12 to 15 pass attempts tops with Harburg because I don't think he's a guy you want to air it out with. And the way the game got started, where Nebraska got off to a early lead. I mean, it 14-0 in the second quarter, but after kind of recovering from some of their mistakes, you can afford to not throw the ball quite as much because you're not trying to chase anything, right? But I was pretty happy with the split. I mean, you're talking 48 rushes to 11 passes. Like, that's kind of in the neighborhood I wanted them to be at. They kept this thing in that 60 play range, which is good for them the way they're trying to run things. So I didn't have a ton of issues, but I agree with you there. After a guy gets rocked like that, like, maybe don't put him in another position to get rocked again. And I know you never anticipate a play call where it's like, oh man, he's going to get hit again, but it's an option. Like, the quarterback's going to get hit a decent amount of the time there. If you want to run an option there, just put Jeff Sims in for the play, and just be like, hey, he got rocked.
I don't know.
but in all honesty, right? Like, I understand it didn't go well with Jeff Sims.
In result to a normal scenario, when your guy is a little shaken up, you put the backup in for
just
a couple
for a play,
of plays.
just make sure he's okay, right? Which is what they ended up doing anyway, but after the play where he ends up fumbling on the option, right? So I just didn't understand, like, hey, if you want to keep Harburg in the game, call a pretty simple handoff, not a big deal. If you want to run an option, put Sims in the game to make sure Harburg is okay, because I don't think anybody would have had any issues if you pull Harburg after that play just to make sure he's feeling okay after everything. That would have been a very normal thing to do. It's not like you're benching him for taking that hit. Everybody's like, oh yeah, they're just checking on him, right? I would have been totally okay with that. That would have made more sense to me. If you want to run the option, put Sims in. If you want to keep Harburg in, run a handoff. Like, this is that, but really, honestly, we're talking about a one-play sequence. It's only one play, right? Because I don't care about the call that got him hit, right? Because that's a fine play call. You see that, whatever. It's just that second play where you go,
and you're right. Harburg shouldn't take that hit.
No, he shouldn't.
Had so much open space.
He did.
All he had to do, he was outside of the tackle box.
Just
all
chuck
he had
it.
to do was just huck it.
Just chuck it. Yeah, it's fine. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, and again, I know we've said this every week, but it bears repeating. This is not I find it almost impossible outside of a play like that where it's kind of a common sense deal. I find it almost impossible to find a real way of evaluating this offense, especially, I mean, and it gets worse every week, right? Like, we're like, they don't really have the receivers they want. Like, I don't really know what to do there. And it's like, they don't really have the running backs they want. I don't really know what to do there. And it's like, well, it's not the guy they thought was going to play quarterback. I don't really know what to do there. Now it's like, well, they're missing 3 offensive linemen. I don't really know what to do there. It just keeps getting worse and worse. And you look at it, and I really don't know how to evaluate this offense, because I fully believe this is not anywhere in the neighborhood of what they want to do offensively. And it is just literally, hey, who do we have healthy right now? Okay, let's run the plays those guys know or they feel comfortable with. I feel like the game plan has a lot less to do with, hey, how do we beat Purdue? And it's, hey, how do we put 11 people on the field on offense? Like, that's where we're at with this offense right now. And they still managed to score 24 offensive points. I'm not saying that's a great number, but it's a conference game. You've got 9 guys in there who are underclassmen, and at least 9. Yeah, I think 9 guys in there that were not starters to start the season, and you still come out with a relatively solid performance on offense. Like,
this team put up 31 points, Ravi.
That's what I mean.
That's about the over-under for the Iowa game this week.
It's a little high. That would hit the over. We will get to that and more. We'll also set up the show. More Husker football to come as well on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. This is Hurrdat Sports. Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Andrew Rogers here with me as well. Shane Schillerberg, not Andrew Schillerberg. Andrew Rogers, Shane Schillerberg producing. We are live on YouTube, Twitter, on those YouTube comments. We've got TK, Corey, Nathan, all chiming in this morning. We appreciate you guys listening.
And to comment one quick thing on TK's last thing that Shane just popped up on the screen, I'm not more talking about, hey, he's under center and you're running a draw play straight up the middle. You can run a halfback draw out of the shotgun.
Yeah, or
like, just snap it back and hand it off. You don't have to worry about guys turning the right way or anything like that. I understand backups are in and things can change, but every player knows how to run a halfback draw play. It's one of the simplest plays in football. Now, there's other pieces to that where the linemen go and everything, but I'm literally saying from the stance of he hikes the ball, you hand the ball off, and you let Johnson or whoever's the running back go. Like, whether he gets no yards, whether it's a loss of 3, whatever, you give your quarterback a breather after that moment. That's all I'm saying. Yes, Heinrich's going to get hit.
Yes,
Heinrich's going to,
with the offense they're running, he's going to get hit.
He gets hit more times than I'd probably like a quarterback to get hit in games. I talk about that with Fields all the time with the Bears. He takes way too many shots.
But with that specific hit, that was different, and everybody knows that was a different hit. That was a different scenario than most of the time where he's getting hit in the ribs or whatever. He got popped and blindsided under the chin. Like, give him a second, right? Just do QB handoff. Just whatever play you want to run, whatever version of that you want to run, just hand the ball off, give him a break. Or if you want to run a specific play, get Jeff Sims in there. I understand that it didn't look good when Jeff Sims was in there, but it's not like Heinrich Haarberg was lighting the world on fire either with taking care of the football. So it was particularly ugly because the Jeff Sims one turned into a touchdown, but it's not. This is a different conversation than just a normal, hey, he's taking hits on the option. He got smoked on that one. Just give him a second. I don't think that's unreasonable to ask for. Let's set up the show real quick before we hop back.
Who are we talking to?
Who we're talking, our Monday regular, Sam McKewon, our guy from the Omaha World-Herald. That's coming up at 8 o'clock. At 8:43, we're going to talk to John Kirby of jayhawkslant.com. He covers Kansas football. Got that big win over previously undefeated Oklahoma. We will talk to him at 8:43. Then 9 o'clock, Kevin Sweeney from Sports Illustrated covers college basketball. It's getting that time of year, Andrew. We're 2 days away from November. Nebraska had their exhibition yesterday. Creighton's got their exhibition on Friday. Illinois knocked off Kansas in an exhibition yesterday. We're getting into college basketball season before people know it. So we're going to do a little college basketball preview at 9 a.m. And then I know it's Shane's favorite part of the week at 9:30. We got Shane's World coming up. See if you can get some more. See if we can get some more tasty jelly beans for Andrew to try.
No.
I know it's your favorite part of the week.
And he set him right next to me with the wheel, tempting me.
He is. He's taunting you a little bit at this point.
Maybe.
He's taunting you at this point.
Oh, good. Tutti Frutti Stinky Socks.
Have you had stinky socks yet?
No, but I'm sure it's better than old bandage or dead fish.
I don't know. Which one did you
Notice how I have a water on standby today.
Yeah, what's the one you had last week that almost was
That
that
was dead fish.
dead fish? Okay.
Yeah,
I couldn't remember if it was that
Yeah, that was
or barf.
Oh gosh, barf would have been bad. No, which one? Where's the dead fish? Carry the 2. Strawberry banana smoothie or dead fish.
Yeah, that's quite the
Not great.
no, that's not ideal.
You
Not
asked me the same
great.
question last year, Eric.
No, I didn't.
So
No, I didn't, Jim.
we will get to Shane's World at 9:30. Departuring a little from Nebraska, you mentioned before the break that Iowa Northwestern over under 29.5.
Got to be the lowest that I've seen.
No,
in
it's
a
the lowest
long
ever.
time.
Is what it is.
Oh, that's what it said.
That's what the internet was telling me yesterday. Is that it
Oh,
was the
Well,
lowest?
we can trust whatever's on there.
Yeah, it was on Twitter, so it has
Mhm.
to be true. No, but there were several places I was looking. I follow, obviously a bunch of bettors online.
Gosh, was Rutgers Iowa last year 30.5?
I think it was, yeah. 29.5. If you want to go hammer that under, as I do, make sure you get over to
I
our
don't
guys
know.
at Warhorse
This is going
Sports.
to be the one that, like, because last year that's what everyone was saying too. Like, oh no, 30.5. This is going to be the one that doesn't hit, and then the under actually hit.
Yeah,
Are you guys going?
I feel like this is the game that the over is going to hit.
man, you're putting a lot of confidence in
Like,
Iowa.
It's probably going to be 2 punt returns for a touchdown, and
Cooper DeJean. Well, no, they're going to call it back if it's Cooper
Yeah, they'll probably
DeJean,
call
so,
one back, and
no,
maybe one's a pick six. Like,
we might have to make a little trip over to Warhorse Sportsbook and see if we can start hammering that under. You can join us on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline, 888-638-4876. You can also email us. I'm Ravi at hurrdatsports.com. That's Andrew at hurrdat.com. And you can hit us up on Twitter. I'm at R.A. Lulla. That's at Andrew Rogers CC, because he's thick with 2 C's.
I'm getting there.
With those breakfast roll-ups. You got
The hot dog that I mean.
Yeah,
I could have sworn that said sausage on there, but no, it turned into a hot dog real fast.
If anybody on the show was going to eat a hot dog at 7:00 in the morning, the heavy favorite would have been me.
But I didn't know it was a hot dog.
I know.
So it literally says sausage on here. It says a sausage roll. It's not sausage.
No, it's a hot
It's
dog.
a hot dog.
It is. It's just a hot
like
dog.
it smells like a hot dog.
No, it did. As soon as
tastes
you
like
got it out there, I was
it
like,
looks like a hot
yeah.
dog.
As soon as you opened the wrapper, I was like, hot dog. Kind of smells good.
I know, and I'm like, I could have sworn it was sausage.
That's all right though. More Michigan news of this weekend. This tangentially related to the scandal. We don't have, at least that I saw, we don't have any more.
Well,
wrinkles.
outside of Connor Stallions being dressed up at almost every game across the country
Yes, yeah.
on Halloween weekend.
But the latest from Football Scoop is that apparently Michigan has rescinded a extension offer from Jim Harbaugh that would have made him the highest paid coach in college football. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. I'm getting it from Football Scoop, but that's a significant step. Obviously, they could still put the contract extension back on the table, but they were, even a month ago after the self-imposed suspension, were still planning on offering this to him. And the fact that this has risen to their level of, at least internally, where they're not sure if they want to do that, to me makes me believe maybe it's a little bit more, they're taking it a little bit more seriously than what was previously thought.
Yeah, the whole Michigan thing is just weird, and it just keeps getting weirder.
It really
and weirder,
does.
And instead of getting quieter and quieter, like most scandals, that gets louder and louder.
Yeah, because there's new stuff like every 12 hours.
Every single day. Yeah, college football playoff rankings debut Tuesday. We'll find out more on what the committee thinks about Michigan at that time. But looking at where the AP poll voters have Michigan, nothing's changing.
No.
Nothing's going to change. 37 voters penciled in Michigan at 2. 11 had them at 3. And 9 of them still had them at 1.
Yeah.
Despite their lowest vote being 6. Okay. They're not going to be 6.
No.
13 of the 63 poll votes moved Michigan down on their ballots, but that doesn't mean they moved them out of the college football playoff playoff contention. Now, does that matter? No. AP poll voters don't decide who gets into the college football playoff, but I think you can trust where they have them placed, that if they are placed in the top 4, that Michigan will end up being in the college football playoff as long as there's a 0, right? To the right of their record.
Yes, yeah, as long as they don't take a loss.
If they take an L to Ohio State, now you may get a committee that's like,
or Penn State. I mean, they play Penn State in a couple of weeks. I mean,
well, Penn State,
they struggled against Indiana, but
didn't impress me one bit this week.
No, they didn't. But they're the second.
They impressed me last week.
They're the second best team on the schedule for Michigan. There,
the guess would be Ohio State. If you take a loss to Ohio State, that's one where you're like, they're borderline. Like maybe you could probably make a case that, hey, a Pac-12 team gets in over 2 Big Ten teams at that point.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Are we already at the break?
We are. The show's flying by already. Coming up, we've got some breaking college basketball news this morning. We also have more Nebraska to get to, as well as, there's some things that Dion said that I didn't like. Surprise, surprise. We will have all that and more coming up on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're live on AM 590 ESPN Omaha and ESPN Tri-Cities. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on a Monday. I'm Ravi, Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me.
What's up?
We are brought to you this morning by the Teammates Mentoring Program, founded in 1991 by Dr. Tom and Nancy Osborne. The Teammates Mentoring Program's mission is to positively impact the world by inspiring students to reach their full potential through mentoring. 1 in 3 young people will grow up without a mentor, and that's what the Teammates Program is trying to fix. Mentors and mentees meet in school during the day for about 30 minutes once a week to chat, play games, whatever it is, and just make a connection. Many mentors say they get just as much out of the sessions as the mentees do. Go to teammates.org to become a mentor today. Mentioned before the break, we've got a little bit of breaking college basketball news. Number 1 recruit in the country in the 2025 class, Cooper Flagg, out of Maine.
17-year-old.
He is 17 years old, and he has committed to Duke. He is a 5-star prospect. Depending on what service you look at, one of those consensus 5 stars across pretty much every service.
He's the Dylan Raiola of college basketball.
Yeah, he is. He's a big guy, small forward, can protect the rim a little bit. I believe he's 6'10", a lot of skill set.
I was gonna guess 6'8".
Yeah, I believe he's 6'10".
Gosh, if he's 6'10",
he's pretty.
I feel like people just keep getting bigger, or I'm just like, I didn't get the proper genes.
I certainly didn't. I've been the same
my
height.
Chromosomes didn't connect the way that Cooper Flagg's did.
I've been the same height since.
That's not how it works.
Since I don't think so. You gotta check in the rotary.
What do we got? Tell me 6'8".
Is
come on.
He is 6'8". You nailed it.
Hey, Shane, give me a ding.
Hey, Napoleon, what'd you do all last summer again?
That's not what I asked.
I don't know what that means at all.
But you gotta like that every time you hear it, don't you?
Sure.
I like how he just like he not only like didn't play the ding, but he made me feel bad for not appreciating the Napoleon Dynamite clip. That is how I feel right now, and that's what I saw coming in today. Just across the street.
Yeah.
A little T-bone accident. So hopefully everybody was okay.
Yeah, I hope everybody's okay.
Yeah, you gotta be careful.
I thought I was going to be late today.
It's all right. No, you didn't have any. You didn't have any fast food.
Oh, I had a fast
issues?
Food blunder over the weekend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. When I wanted a wrap, I got a burger. I don't know how those two connect, but I did have a blunder like that. But yeah, Cooper Flagg's he's a good talent.
No, he's a really good prospect.
He's a good player. What did he average, like 25 last year?
Yeah,
25 a game.
So his real impressive stuff has come in the summers because obviously You know, I don't know that Maine high school basketball has a lot of competition for a guy of that caliber. But
You're telling me you don't watch a lot of Maine high school basketball?
I don't. Yeah, it's not on my little DVR that I've got recorded to go. But the stuff that he's done in the shoe circuits on AAU has been really impressive. He's been dominant over the last couple of years, and you know, if you follow some of those, I honestly, the first place I saw him was TikTok. Some of these
It's where you see a lot of recruiting videos
Yeah.
now or highlight reels.
yeah, these recruiting kind of, I don't even know what they are. They're not like recruiting services, but they're kind of just, they're like highlight places that feature recruits and things like that. Yeah, I saw him over the summer, I think like a year and a half ago, and he's an incredible talent. So congrats, I guess, to Duke on that one.
Yeah, how about Cooper Flagg walking in? I think he was walking into Duke Stadium this weekend for the football game.
Yeah.
How many people do you think were giving that guy a high five and not knowing who the heck he was?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like
do you think he's recognizable like across the country as, hey, that's Cooper Flagg? Like, hey, that's LeBron James?
probably not across the country, but at a place like Duke where you are locked in on kind of the guys you're trying to get, and he's
Maybe.
the number one
Yeah,
recruit.
maybe.
Like, in that niche, I feel like he's very recognizable. If he came to Nebraska, people would be like, I'm sorry, who? But at Duke, where you have a chance of landing him and stuff like that, like
Cooper. Aren't
it's,
you the guy that runs kicks back?
you mentioned Dylan Raiola. It's like if Dylan Raiola come to a Nebraska basketball game like he did last year, right?
Yeah, people know who he is.
Yeah, people in Nebraska know who that guy
But
is.
if you send
People,
them to San Antonio, maybe they don't
yeah,
know
it's
who
like,
Dylan
oh, that's
Raiola
just a
is.
guy, whatever,
point.
right? So I think it's pretty similar there. But speaking of recruits, it sounds like Deion Sanders is going to be recruiting some new offensive linemen.
Oh, you think so?
Over the weekend. I gotta say, so this is a perfect example of why I'm not a huge Deion guy. Is this just kind of the way he handled the question about, because I watched his whole press conference because I saw the clip and I was like, okay, I want to get the full context of kind of what happened here. And obviously, Colorado lost to UCLA. Shedeur Sanders he was harassed all day. Like he was. To be fair, that's kind of been all year. Now, I saw some of the UCLA game. I didn't see the whole thing yet. But judging on what's happened all year, a lot of Shedeur Sanders' sacks have come because he holds on to the ball for an ungodly amount of time. That dude holds on to the ball for so long. Now, I'm not saying the offensive line is good. I'm not saying that. But that dude holds on to the ball for so long, which causes some of the issues.
Yeah,
okay?
I don't pay close enough attention to that, but I'm not going to sit here and try to argue that either, just based on what I remember.
Yeah.
From his early games this season,
Right.
when Colorado was taking in a lot of hype.
Yeah,
I didn't catch the UCLA game either. I was doing UNO hockey, and then the World Series was carrying over, and then there was a nice little Halloween party at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill that I was a part of. But yeah, no, you bring up a good point with Colorado. They're just not everything. It's kind of like, when you tell people this isn't how it seems. Like everything isn't how it seems. Like you may see on Twitter or on national television, like Colorado this, Colorado that, and think, oh my goodness, Colorado's this amazing, iconic team. And look, they made huge strides from where they were from last year.
Absolutely.
But everything is not how it seems.
Well, and the part that I don't like, and listen, I expected them to come back to earth because the schedule got a lot tougher. The Pac-12 is actually really good this year. Even some of the teams that I thought, like Arizona, I thought could be a win for them. They're 5-3. Like Arizona's playing a lot better football than I thought they would this year. But the thing that I didn't like was, okay, like he's talking about how he thinks Shedeur is the best quarterback in the country, and you expect him to say something like that. He's his kid, obviously, but he's also his quarterback.
Wait, Shedeur Sanders is Deion Sanders' kid?
He is.
Whoa,
they're related.
Shane, did you know that?
You're not going to believe this.
Man.
Shiloh Sanders on the other side of the ball, also his kid.
No way.
Yeah, 2 kids on the team.
Dude, I think you're underestimating how popular the last name Sanders is.
11.
But it's
11.
He's 11. No, I don't think he has 11 kids. He does have a few. But no, so he's talking about Shedeur, and I get that. And then somebody asked him a question about the offensive line. He's like, well, we're just going to get new linemen. That's basically the gist of it.
I love how easy that is to say.
Right? It's like nobody else in the country is looking for offensive linemen.
I thought you built this team, man. I thought you built this team from scratch. These are the guys you wanted.
Yeah.
There's a reason why.
I thought he brought his Louis.
You gave everybody their Louis Vuitton bags and sent them on their way.
I thought he brought his Louis.
You brought your baggage. It just didn't work out.
Yeah, it's not that easy. Everybody in the country is looking for impact offensive linemen, and that's probably that and edge rushers are the hardest thing to find in the portal because everybody wants them, and if you're good, you don't leave, right? So getting impact guys at those positions is incredibly hard. We've seen Nebraska. Everybody's like, oh, just fix the offensive line through the portal. They've gotten, I think, so Newilli's was a transfer, but he was not a highly touted guy. He just has happened to work out for Nebraska. Ben Scott's the only impact transfer on the offensive line that they've gotten, I think, in the last handful of years. Like Jacob Hood was a transfer, but he hasn't played yet. Like maybe he'll end up being okay. It's way harder to get impact guys through the transfer portal on the lines than it
really
is
develop your line
anywhere else, right? And because if they're good, they either stay where they're at or they go to the NFL and they don't leave.
Question.
Yes.
Because you just kind of sparked a thought in my head. Is it at all a worry to you that, even if Nebraska makes a bowl game this year and they have a winning season, that you could lose members on this defense? We talk a lot about Tony White and not getting paid and possibly being a head coach, but you just sparked a thought that I never really thought about until now. Could you see members of this defense going one step up from Nebraska? Kind of like Ernest Hausman goes to Michigan, right? And he was one of the best defensive players for Nebraska last year. Now this defense is just so much better than last year's defense. But you know what I'm saying, by having a really good defense and some really good players, is it a worry to you at all that one or two may leave? You may lose one or two.
Not for the transfer portal, not guys that are making an impact right now. If you lose some guys early to the NFL that think they've got a shot, that I would understand.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I think that's
I meant transfer.
Yeah, I don't think there's I mean, listen, you might have
these are guys that stick it out.
Yeah, you might have guys that aren't playing right now. And listen, if you're not playing on Tony White's defense right now, maybe you should transfer because he's playing a lot of guys, right? So if you're in a spot where you're not able to...
I was more like thinking starter. Like, would you see like a starter being like Hartzog being like, oh, say he took major steps forward and it's like, I'm going to go play for, Georgia wants me, I'm going to go play for Georgia. Now, I'm not saying that happens, but I kind of agree with you in the sense of the way the culture is at Nebraska. It's you either want to be here or you don't.
Yeah, and I think the guys that
want to be here, I would find it hard to believe too. So maybe I just talked myself out of that point, but I was curious.
Well, and honestly, I think the guys that don't want to be here either have already weeded themselves out or wouldn't be starting. I think Rule's at a point, and Tony White the same, where if guys aren't totally bought in, then they're not playing right now. And if you're totally bought in, I just have a hard time they're leaving for another school next year, especially because I expect Nebraska to take a pretty big step forward next year, the same way all of Coach Rule's teams have in year two. Coming up next, we've got Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me as well. We are brought to you by our friends at Dyer Law. If you've been hurt in a personal injury accident, you can count on the Dyer Law team to provide you with a helping hand when you need it, no matter what you're dealing with. Call the Dyer Law team at 402-393-7529 or visit dyer.law to chat with trusted professionals about your personal injury claim. That's DYER.law. Hopefully the people you saw in a car accident this morning don't need Dyer Law, but if they do have a personal injury, go ahead and give our friends at Dyer Law.
They may need Dingman's more than they need Dyer Law.
Hey, call them both. Just call them both.
I called Dingman's over the weekend because I wanted to cash in my oil change.
Oh, yeah?
And I was trying to get in touch with their mechanical shop, and I called the wrong location at first, the collision center, and then I called their mechanical shop. And, oddly enough, like I called, and it just kept ringing. So I don't know if I had the right phone number or if I need to revisit that, but I think I'm just going to bring my car over there. I'm just going to go.
I'm sure they'll take care of you.
Because I was going to call and be like, hey, how long's like the wait? They're probably swamped, super busy, or maybe they're not even open on Sundays.
We are joined now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline by our friend Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, how are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
We are doing well. Let's just start off with, some pretty staggering numbers here that I think everybody's probably heard by now. But first 3-game win streak since 2016. First time going undefeated in October since, I think, 2001. Put those numbers into perspective for me, Sam.
Well, I mean, it's a combination of the teams they're playing, and Nebraska's gotten really good on defense in a short amount of time. And you tip your cap to that reality and to making plays off script. You don't go into a game expecting to get a blocked field goal for a touchdown, but when you get plays like that, you usually win. Special teams touchdowns are often unforeseen, and they usually lead to victories. And so those are always things to kind of watch. And Nebraska got a big play, and they got it at the right time in the game. If that fumble return to Purdue happens in the first quarter, maybe it's a different story. But the reality is Nebraska, controlled the first 3 quarters of that game in a lot of different ways. And they got a big play when they needed it with the throw to Lloyd, and they had a nice drive, the 87-yard drive, and they dominated Purdue for 3 quarters. And then, at the end, it got a little loose, but they survived it. And here we are on the cusp of a bowl game. That's where we find ourselves now.
Perfect transition, Sam. How crazy yet real does it feel to be in striking distance of a bowl game?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think if you'd kind of cast your gaze before the season, I could have imagined Nebraska being 5-3 at this point. I would not have imagined them losing to Colorado, and I would not have imagined them beating Illinois. But they those 2 things flip flopped, and then I thought Northwestern wasn't going to be very good. I thought Purdue was going to be a team that Nebraska beat. Thought Purdue was going to take a step back, and they did. So I'm not stunned that they're 5-3 at this point. I think now it becomes a question of, can you go out and close it? Can you go and get that last win? Can you? That certainly can be this week. Believe me, nobody's going to stop them. Michigan State's on the ropes, and their season is not over, but it's over. And Michigan State's going to probably end up being a 9-loss team. So Nebraska's got a real chance here to put them away and clinch it. And you go play Maryland, who's on the ropes like they usually are at this time of year. So everything's in play at this point. Everything's in place for what Nebraska wants and needs, and we'll see how it all shakes out. I think it's going to be interesting.
Sam, you mentioned kind of the schedule and some of the teams they faced and that type of thing, and I understand this is not a murderer's row of opponents that they're facing here, but I'm genuinely curious how much difference is there between the Big Ten West this year and some of the teams that Nebraska's faced versus in years past? Because it's not like the Big Ten West has been lighting the world on fire for a little while now. I guess, how much of a gap is there in terms of the opponents that Nebraska's played compared to years past?
There's probably not much of a gap from last year.
Right, yeah.
I think, not much of a gap from last season. There's been other years where the Big Ten West has been, 2019, the Big Ten West was pretty good.
Sure.
Minnesota won 11. Wisconsin went to the Rose Bowl, I think, and lost, but lost to a good team when they got there. Iowa was good. I think Iowa had 9 wins. 2021 was pretty good when you think about it. Purdue was a good 9-win team, and Minnesota was a good 9-win team. I think Iowa won 10. So there's been years where the division's been tougher than it is right now, for sure. And some of what's happening right now is that the defenses are all pretty old and pretty stingy, and the offenses, a lot of the players, and this is a byproduct of the transfer portal, a lot of the best skilled player recruits at a number of these programs have transferred. At Iowa, they transferred. At Minnesota, Bucky Irving, who's probably going to be the Pac-12, all Pac-12 running back, transferred. At Wisconsin, a couple guys have transferred. At Nebraska, let's be honest, a couple of good players have transferred. It's not a crime that they did, but A.J. Allen probably would have helped this team.
Mm-hmm.
I know Nebraska didn't like his hands out of the backfield, but look at what they're putting out there right now in terms of ball security. So, So, there's been some players who have transferred that probably would have helped this team, or guys that didn't sign or whatever. And so, a lot of the defenses have gotten old. A lot of the players have transferred, or they've left early. Good players leave early for the NFL. I don't think Sam Laporta had exhausted his eligibility, so stuff like that. And so I think this is where the league's at right now. That's going to change come next year, and you're really going to start to see the sea change in about 25 or 26 when all the COVID years are done, and it's no longer 6-year defensive linemen who are going to go get an MBA or are getting an MBA and going to go back and be a businessman, who are just playing. They're just like the 25-year-old men, and they're playing college football. They'll just be 24, But I mean, so there's going to be some turnover eventually in college football, where you don't have 6-year players all over the place on the defensive side of the ball, and that's where the majority of them have been. Is guys that are safeties and linebackers. They're probably not NFL players, but they're going to hang on in college football because they're making 6 figures in NIL, and that's part of what you've seen happen.
Sam, I may be sounding a little adventurous when I say this, but based on how the Big Ten West looks, I still think it's a definite possibility. Is this Nebraska defense enough to get to the Huskers, to the Big Ten championship game, if the offense stays exactly where they're at?
In theory, yes, it is. There's probably one game in there where you just kind of wonder whether that's going to be enough, and that's probably the game at Wisconsin. But Wisconsin's got their own warts now, with Braylon Allen being hurt, DK being hurt up there too, their receiver. So yeah, I mean, I think there's in theory it can happen. It's very possible. If I told you that Iowa could get to the Big Ten championship game with its offense, everybody would agree, and their offense is horrible. So, I mean, I have to watch more of this quarterback. That I don't know I don't know why he's there. Like, I don't know. I'll have to watch more of him. Apparently he has a good arm, and and I don't know what number of quarterback he is on the team. I know they had a guy get hurt, and obviously not McNamara, but they had another backup get hurt, and so I'm not exactly sure why this is the guy that's playing. But you talk about limited, he's limited, and so
Definitely
there's not. I mean, I'm not sure he can get out of the pocket. So there's a lot of things that are true of Iowa. Nobody blink an eye if Iowa goes 10-2 and is in the Big Ten championship. So yeah, Nebraska can do it. I think Nebraska's got a good enough defense to pull it off. I think their offense is more dynamic, to be really honest with you, than Iowa's offense. And so, yeah, I mean, it's possible. I think I don't know that I bet on it. I think to me, this looks like 7 wins. 9 feels like a stretch to me. But 7.
Hey, both cases are great.
It'd be great. It looks like 7 at this moment, and 7 gets you to Las Vegas probably. So 9, if you go to the Big Ten championship game and you win 9 games, and again, Nebraska does not control its destiny completely. They need Minnesota to lose to Ohio State the week before the Iowa game. So Minnesota wins out, and Minnesota wins the Big Ten West. But if Nebraska gets to 9 wins, they're going to play on New Year's Day, which is just bizarre. But that'll happen. That will happen. They'll get to play in the Citrus Bowl or the Outback Bowl or whatever they call that bowl now. And, they'll play in Tampa or Orlando, and nobody would have anticipated that before the year began. Certainly nobody.
We're talking with Sam McKewon of the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, as you look at the rest of the schedule, I know we're kind of talking like projecting wins and stuff here, which is always, probably a fool's errand, but we like to do it anyway. That's kind of the job. But as you look at this schedule on the way out, you were kind of talking about some of the issues that each team has. Obviously, Michigan State, the quote-unquote easiest of the final 4 opponents. But as you look on the last 4 games, I mean, who do you think is the toughest? Because obviously Iowa's got the defense, but the offense is, as we mentioned, just flat out atrocious. Wisconsin and Maryland, I always thought were probably the toughest ones, but they're each having their own issues as well. I'm curious, who do you see as the toughest opponent left?
Probably Wisconsin. I don't think they're necessarily the most complete team, but probably them. I think that the game is up there and it's at night, and I think it's their senior day, right? And I don't know. The fans will be juiced up, and so I think that's probably the one that stands out to me as challenging for Nebraska.
Does that seem less daunting than it did to you even a few weeks ago, though?
Yeah, it does, because you don't have your quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have your running back, and you don't have your best receiver. So yeah, it does seem less daunting for sure. Nebraska also doesn't have some of those players. But,
Sure.
But let me say this: the gap between the best quarterback, running back, and receiver at Wisconsin and the next best is larger than the gap at Nebraska. I mean, let's be honest. And I think Harburg's better at this point than Sims. I feel for Sims for sure.
Mm-hmm.
He's had a hard go, but I'd roll with Harburg despite his mistakes. Nebraska's number one running back, I guess, was Gabe Ervin. I don't know. He's not as good as Braylon Allen. And then Wisconsin's number two running back is out too.
Mm-hmm.
Malusi is done for the year. And then I don't know who Nebraska's number one receiver was, but it is what it is. So I think Nebraska's gap, they didn't lose as much there. Now, we'll see with these offensive line changes what it looks like. I'm not saying that Nebraska wouldn't be a better offense if they had all those players healthy. Obviously, they would be, and they would probably, be more effective offense in some ways. But those players aren't available. And to be honest with you, Nebraska's kind of a big play offense, guys. So part of what they do is they're scheming it up. And Jalen Lloyd can run wide open through a defense just as well as Billy Kemp can. So it's
maybe better.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, some of the stuff they're doing is not predicated on who's doing it. It's not Trey Palmer out there. It's just whoever happens to be the play, and they're going to call the play. And they're going to try to scheme it up a little bit. And so they've done that, and I think that will continue. They're going to get Heinrich Harburg open throws. I think Marcus Satterfield has done that.
Mm-hmm.
He's gotten Harburg opportunities. Harburg's got to make the best of those. And he hit one. This is the second time in a row this week where they roll him to the right off a play action fake. He's got a 20-yard throw that should be a first down. He doesn't hit it. He's got to find a way to learn how to hit that throw because it's there both times. And they'll get there. They'll get there with him. He's still growing as a player, and they'll find a way to make it work for him.
Sam, Nebraska has been much stronger in the turnovers lost column since the first two games of the year, but it's still a problem, one that needs fixing. But my question to you is, can that be coached, or is that something the player just has to work out on his own?
I'm sorry, I lost you there for a second. What can be coached?
Can the turnovers be coached? Like the turnovers lost, can that be coached, or is that something the player just has to figure out on his own?
Well, there's a variety of things that are going on there. I think with the ball security piece, I know they're coaching it. So sometimes that stuff can be almost contagious where you're thinking about it and don't do it. Some of the option stuff, the option is inherently risky and turnover prone.
Mm-hmm.
It is because you have a ball handler out on the edge in free space, who's not considered an undefensive player, who's handling the ball, pitching it, running it, all those things. And the quarterback's running perpendicular to the line of scrimmage. And so if he gets hit the way that Harburg did on that one, you're going to lose the ball. Like, that's what happens when your shoulders aren't square and you're not running at a guy, but you're running down the line. That's why it's an art. The really good ones, going back all the way, whoever that was, Jamel Holloway, Darian Hagan, Tommy Frazier was as good as I've ever seen. It's an art to not get hurt and to know when to pitch the ball. So that takes a lot of time and effort. It takes just as much time and effort as anything. And that he's getting better there. I think Rule mentioned it in the presser about the punt return. They need to have a punt return competition this week for sure. I don't pretend to know how you prevent a ball from bouncing off your chest. The way that happened with Bullock, and that was too bad. But what happened on the subsequent punt returns was that can't happen. Like you can't have balls bouncing and then it was hitting in front of you by 10 yards because you're afraid to go field the ball, and then having it bounce 25 yards. That's not. I mean, that's what Samari Toure did back in Michigan State 2 years ago, and it lost him the game. Like he had either the ball was going way over his head because he didn't know where to stand, or he didn't know how to field a punt. And I was like, this is you have to have somebody back there who knows how to field punts and can get under the ball. And maybe they were asking Bullock to do that. I don't know, but if that's what they were asking him to do, then they need to have a competition this week to figure out who can go and get the ball. And Billy Kemp was good at that. One of the best skills he had is that he knew how to go and get the ball. And maybe Tommy Hill, he caught that one.
Right.
That one punt. And of course, they didn't throw a flag. They should have thrown a flag on the Purdue defender who was all over him when he caught it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is what I mean. It does, just because it's a bad punt doesn't mean that he doesn't get a chance to field the punt. So there were moments in that game that were just like, this is not good football at all.
Sam, could you make the argument that Nebraska's having more of those, we'll call them for radio purposes, oh crap plays than they even have been in years past, but for obvious reasons, they're coming out with victories instead of losses? Because I think for me, I'm not sure that we've realized, like, hey, a lot of the same mistakes are happening. They're just finding the same ways to win, and maybe even more mistakes are happening.
Yeah, it's the defense. The defense is playing great. And so that's the biggest part, is that defense is flying around and they're hitting people and they don't flinch. And they play an aggressive style that probably doesn't let them think a lot. And they just got to go play. And they are. They're playing really hard. And they hit. They're starting to create turnovers. They've got good athletes on that side of the ball. Most of them are healthy. And all the things that we knew were true of the culture on that side of the ball are just coming to fruition. Offense is always going to be more temperamental because execution is hard. Like it's hard, and you can't just on offense. You can win with effort for sure, but it can't just be all effort. There's a certain craft and art to doing certain things. You can't throw every pass as hard as you possibly can. You can't. A running back has to have patience, whereas a safety who's just going up to fill a play won't have any patience. So there's things on the offensive side of the ball that take time, but in defense, you can get a long way with effort and toughness and aggression. They're playing their guts out, and I think that's why they're winning these games, and they'll have a great chance to beat Michigan State. I think I'm going to ask Rule probably today, why are the defenses so far ahead of the offenses in this league, and how does that compare to the Big 12? Because he knows that league too. So there's something going on there, and it's playing itself out in pretty much every game on the Big 10 schedule.
Sam, quickly here, got about a minute and a half. I was just scrolling through Twitter and I saw a question that popped up. Who deserves to win Coach of the Year? And Drink from Mizzou is on here, and Leipold is the other one from KU. But if Nebraska gets all the way to that New Year's game that we were kind of alluding to at the beginning, could Matt Rule be in discussion for Coach of the Year?
I don't think so. I think I think they'll probably fall short of that. I know Tom Allen won it in 2020 for going 6-2 and the COVID year, but no, I think he could win Big Ten Coach of the Year for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a chance there. I think he'll probably fall short of the other honor, maybe just by a little bit. Certainly Lance Leipold has a chance, and Drinkwitz does too. So we'll see. We'll see how that all shakes out. It'd be hard to say. Maybe Kalen DeBoer was the Coach of the Year last year, but if Washington goes undefeated, I think Kalen DeBoer is your guy. I think that'd be a great choice. He's done a heck of a job up there in the short time he's been there. Right now, I would say Matt Rule has a terrific chance of being Big Ten Coach of the Year. Don't think Jim Harbaugh is going to get it. So, if Nebraska gets to 8 or 9 wins, I think he's got a real shot of grabbing the honor.
Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, we appreciate your time as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Sam.
Take care.
That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Coming up next, we've got more Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha and ESPN Tri-Cities. We are halfway through the show here on a Monday. Ravi, Lulla, and Andrew Rogers here with you on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and we are brought to you by our friends at The Beanery. The Beanery has 4 great locations, Gretna, Papillion, and Ashland, and they've got whatever types of coffee drinks you're looking for, hot, iced. They've got some frozen specialty drinks. They got some snacks and breakfast. You getting the cinnamon? There you go.
It's like Christmas in a cup.
There you go. Getting in that holiday spirit like Andrew. They've even got vegan scones if that's your thing.
Not my thing, but I'll let everybody else have those.
They are locally owned and operated. The Beanery, serving people coffee. Really good stuff there from Sam in the last segment. You know, we were kind of talking off air on who could potentially be the coach of the year in national college football. I do think Rule probably doesn't rise to that level in terms of national coach of the year.
But I'm sure he'll get a few whispers. Like,
especially,
I think
if
they
they
would talk about them if they got that far.
They win out and make it to Indianapolis, I think you would start hearing his name a little bit. I think you've got some other candidates. I do think, though, in the Big Ten, Rule has a really good shot at Coach of the Year if Nebraska even gets to 7 wins. The other guy that I think has an opportunity, and you named a different one that I think is a good point, and then I'll let you get to that. But the guy that I think has a really good opportunity is, and we talked about him earlier, if Northwestern makes a bowl game, Braun has done an incredible job. David Braun.
I know.
Not suspended for steroids. David Braun has done an incredible job there because this team was terrible last year, 1-11. I don't know if you remember who that one was against, but the fact that they were awful last year,
I forget.
Just purge it from your brain.
Mm-hmm.
They were awful last year, and he took over in one of the worst situations in college football in terms of not just where the team was at, where the roster was at, but also literally how he ended up taking over that position, taking over for a legend at the school, both as a player and a coach. He's only been there for about 15 minutes by the time he gets named head coach because he was hired this offseason as a defensive coordinator, has never coached at the FBS level ever. His first coaching job or head coaching job ever. And he's got this team at 4-4 and has the potential to make a bowl game. That's incredible to me. That would be a candidate for Big Ten Coach of the Year. And then you had one as well.
In the Big Ten?
Yeah.
Ryan Day.
Yeah.
I think Ryan Day should not be overlooked.
And that's fair because we all thought Ryan Day
could be Coach of the Year.
Yeah, if they end up going undefeated and going into the college football playoff, because I know I wasn't alone here.
Offensively, they were going to take a step back. That's what everybody thought.
And defensively, I hadn't been impressed with them the last couple of years.
Why would you be?
Right? They hadn't had those
because all the attention was on the quarterback.
Well, and they hadn't had those defensive
only the quarterback.
You hadn't had those defensive impact players when you had like the Bosas and Chase Young. They hadn't had one of those for a couple of years, and all of a sudden you look up, the defense is incredible.
That's what's keeping this team.
Because the offense has taken a little step back without the consistency of quarterback
100%.
play.
Like Marvin Harrison is unreal.
Yeah.
Like everybody knows that. But outside of him,
the quarterback play is taking a step back.
Henderson has been what this year? I've
average.
Heard a little bit.
Yeah.
Average,
yeah.
right? And then you have Kyle McCord, who wasn't even named the starter until ultimately the week of the first game.
Yeah, game one. Yeah, game week.
We kind of sat back and thought, is anybody else questioning what's going on in Ohio State? Because we've been talking about Kyle McCord being top 3 preseason, top picks for quarterbacks in this league, and they haven't even named him the starting quarterback yet. But
it was weird.
Ryan Day has just done a tremendous job, and as much as I don't want to give Ohio State credit for anything, he's done a great job.
He deserves credit for
making this team,
yeah,
arguably the most competitive in the Big Ten. Because when they played Penn State, I told you I liked Penn State.
Yeah.
And then I got humbled real fast when I saw Ohio State's defense make Drew Aller look like he was a non-con quarterback.
Yeah. Honestly, this was the year that a lot of people, and I was kind of on the verge of this, thought, hey, maybe Penn State replaces Ohio State as that number 2 team, as that biggest challenger to Michigan. And Ohio State, I don't know if they're quite as good as Michigan because the quarterback play at Michigan's better, and I think the defense is about the same as it is at Ohio State, but they're clearly still the challenger to Ohio State or to Michigan. I think Penn State is clearly in a second tier. Not to say that Penn State couldn't beat Michigan still, if they get it right, going right on the right day, but I think it's still clearly Michigan, Ohio State, and everybody else. And that was not what we expected coming into this year.
No, especially because I wanted to have high hopes for Penn State so badly. Like I wanted them to be like that team that.
And it's not like any of us want Ohio State to be good.
Right.
Or not,
I just want a different team. Like, why do you think people are super fond of this World Series? Because there are 2 new teams that aren't normally there.
Yeah.
And like, that's kind of what
my adopted
I
Texas Rangers.
Yeah, exactly. But that's kind of what I tend to root for in all sports.
Yeah.
It's just give me a little bit of difference. Like if it's not my team, give me something different.
Yeah.
And so Penn State was the one team that could have given any Big Ten team a run for their money this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think they're a step behind Ohio State and Michigan.
I don't think Drew Aller's been as good as they would have needed him to be that team. And maybe he will be. He's young. It's his first time as a starter. But I don't think they quite rose to that level this year. Just to kind of wrap up the Northwestern thing, they've got Iowa, Wisconsin, Purdue, Illinois on the way out. So
they need 2.
They need 2 wins.
Purdue
and Illinois are pretty winnable. I mean, Iowa's winnable just because you never know if they're going to score enough.
And I'm not underestimating Northwestern.
Yeah, I mean, they just beat Maryland.
Well, they just beat Maryland, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then who did they?
They came back from 21 down against Minnesota earlier
this
year.
That was the team before. 37-34 was that final, if I'm correct. Like, this is a team that you write them off, they win games.
Yeah, you write them off at their own
So
time.
I'm not even going to write them off for any game down the stretch of the season because there's a solid chance they win 2 of those.
So we're, especially if they continue their trend, I'm looking at their schedule here. Literally every other game has been a win or a loss. They've gone loss, win, loss, win, loss, win.
Hey, with 4 games left, how does that work out?
That means you get to 6 wins.
Oh, that means they go.
So they're going to lose to Iowa. They're going to beat Wisconsin. They're going to lose to Purdue. They're going to beat Illinois. We figured it out.
Okay, question for you.
Yeah.
Get a little bit off the radar
okay.
for me. Don't just pick, like you can pick one solid favorite, but just off the radar.
Mm-hmm.
If you were looking nationally at Coach of the Year, who would be your top 3?
Ooh, top 3. So outside of the obvious guys.
Because I kind of want to stay away from, the Norvells, the DeBoers, because those are like really good shots at actually winning.
Yes.
So maybe like your dark horses. Give me your top 3 dark horses to win.
Yeah, that's fair. So number 1, and our guys, Adam McClintock will appreciate this, is James Madison. They're 8-0. They've played incredible. Kurt Signetti is their head football coach. He is the darling of Adam McClintock and Dave Bartu's analytical methods with evaluating coaches. They've been incredible this year. They're 8-0. They're into the top 25. That's number 1 for me. Another off the radar guy who I know you love is Troy Calhoun at Air Force. They're 8-0. They're up to 17 in the country. He's done an incredible job there this year. And I always have a little soft spot for the service academies. Not just because they're the service academies, but also I love the option a little bit. So really appreciate what they do out there. And then honestly, the other guy who I know is kind of a cult favorite among college football heads is Willie Fritz down at Tulane. They're 7-1, having another great season. Those are kind of my 3 off the radar guys that if I could pick a national coach of the year, it's probably one of those 3 guys.
So Troy Calhoun is definitely on my list.
Yeah, you love Troy Calhoun.
Big fan. I just love the way that Air Force plays. I'll watch them even if you guys, anybody out there calls it bad football. I watch bad football every weekend regardless. So I'm going to keep watching that with Air Force. The other team, and I'm going to give another former Big Ten coach some credit here.
Yeah.
Jeff Brom's turnaround for Louisville.
Yeah,
Louisville's 7-1.
Yeah.
Like, let's not sleep on that. Like
Top 15
they've had
in the
some
country.
pretty big wins, and they just shut out Duke.
Yeah.
And then let me throw one more rando at you.
I'm ready.
Jed Fish.
Ooh, down in Arizona.
Arizona.
They are
head
much better
coach.
than I thought they would be.
And look at the teams that they've been either competitive against
Yeah,
or have won games against. This
absolutely.
season.
That's a good one.
Fish deserves like Matt Rule credit.
He probably won't get enough wins to actually win it, but that's a good pull on Jetfish. Coming up next, we are going to talk a little bit more here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Andrew Rogers here with me, and we are on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. Joining us on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline is John Kirby from Jayhawk Slant. John, how are you this morning?
Well, it's been a busy weekend, guys. I mean, when the Jayhawks win games like this, all of a sudden you're working a little more, working a little harder, getting up earlier.
Maybe working harder to put back up those goalposts.
That's right. That's right.
You got to.
Yeah. Guys, I got to tell you this. The word I got is they had those things replaced that night.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Yeah.
On top
That's
of
pretty
it.
impressive. Yeah.
So who kept those goalposts? The
I saw one.
fraternity
I saw one in a lake.
Yeah, it sounds like they got broken up into several different pieces. Some ended up in Potter Lake. Some ended up in some fraternity front lots. And
Can you imagine? Okay, answer this for me, John. Can you imagine like making this a business decision, cutting up the goalposts, and then like selling them on eBay, like selling pieces of the goalposts? Like, do you think that would be a good money grab? Like maybe pay a little bit of tuition for these kids?
oh yeah, well, hey, listen. In this day and age, I'm sure they've thought of it, and I'm sure it's on eBay.
I'm looking it up right now.
John, obviously an enormous win for Kansas this weekend over previously undefeated Oklahoma. I guess give me some perspective here. I know that Kansas has had some bright spots in the past, but this is the biggest win for Kansas football since when?
Oh, it's been a long time. They were able to beat Texas, a few years ago. Guys, I got to tell you, since I'm on an Omaha show, I have to tell you, one of the biggest wins in recent history was when they beat Nebraska in Kansas for the first time in a long time. And then in 2007, they beat Nebraska and they put up 77 points in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when a lot of people said, all the donors came down on the field after the game and told the AD, what do you guys need? What do you need from us? And that's how they got the new football complex built, was after that win over Nebraska. So, I mean, guys, I've covered KU football since 1999.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And let's face it, I've seen a lot more bad than good.
Sure.
Okay. So when you guys ask about big wins since how big of a win, there haven't been a lot of big wins in the last 25 years there. There's been some nice wins, but like monumental type wins, this is definitely one of them.
Well, and this one's a little different too, right? Because this is actually a really good Kansas team as well. It seems like a lot of the big wins have sort of been one-offs in otherwise kind of bleak seasons. This is a big win for a good Kansas team. How much different does that make it this week?
Oh, it's a huge difference because, when you look at our message board, it's so interesting because there are people who are actually now using scenarios how KU gets in the Big 12 championship game.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So like you said, some of the wins they've had are so big, such big upsets, but they're 3-win seasons, right? Or 4-win seasons. So it's like the incredible highlight of a 4-year span. But this one here is kind of like, hey, listen, this team isn't a fluke. This team's in the middle of a race now to be in the Big 12 championship game, which I don't think any Kansas fan would have thought, right? On August 15th, if I go to the Kansas fans and say, hey, guys, after the Oklahoma game, you all are going to be talking about how you can get to the Big 12 title game, most people would have said, hey, you're crazy to even bring that up.
John, Jason Bean or Jalen Daniels, it doesn't matter. KU may be one of the only programs in college football, next to Nebraska, that takes a step forward when their backup plays. How much has he mattered to the success of the program over the last 2 years to have Kansas eligible for a bowl game in back-to-back seasons?
Well, it's interesting you asked that question because the last 2 years he has been the starting quarterback on the game where they clinched their 6th win. Last year against Oklahoma State, he was the starting quarterback when Jalen Daniels was out, and they won the game by about 3 touchdowns, and that gave them their 6th win and in the bowl game. And then obviously Saturday he was a starting quarterback. So it's been huge. And guys, maybe one of the biggest things that happened in the offseason was Jason Dean deciding to return. Okay, because
100%.
He's even said he wasn't sure he was even going to come back. He wasn't even sure he's going to maybe even play football. And in the Liberty Bowl, they lost by 1 point or 2 points to Arkansas. Okay, it was a great game, triple overtime, and he had a chance to throw a pass that would have tied it up. Okay, and his pass sailed over the receiver's head, and he took a lot of heat on social media. There was a lot of fans that got all over him about the throw and everything because that was the final play of the game. And after time, I think he even told the coaches, "Hey, I'm thinking about possibly leaving here and just shutting it down." And he decided over the winter to come back. And I'm telling you, that was the biggest thing in the offseason that happened to KU football because they wouldn't be there without a backup quarterback as good as he's played.
We're talking with John Kirby of Jayhawk Slant. John, let's talk about Lance Leipold here for a second because I want to know, where was the fan base's mindset when he got hired before the 2021 season compared to, obviously, I'm sure they're over the moon about him now, but he was coming off of a quality run at Buffalo, but he's a guy in his mid 50s, not when he was hired, maybe not one of those, sexy coaching hires of the hot up and comers. He spent a lot of time in Division III. I guess, what was the mindset of when he got hired, and how surprised are you that he's had the success that he has at Kansas?
Well, the first question is, believe it or not, he was kind of the number 1 or number 2 choice from all the KU fans. I mean, throughout time, he was number 1 on our hot board when we put it out. Okay, I mean, he had all the qualifications of a coach that you've seen win at Kansas in our recent lifetime. I mean, there's only been 2 of them, right? Glenn Mason and Mark Mangino. Those are the only 2 football coaches that have ever won at Kansas in umpteen years. Well, Leipold, when you take over Kansas, it is so hard because by the time they fire their coaches, guys, they are so down at the bottom in the basement. It takes so much work just to get back to the main floor. Okay.
Sure.
So whoever takes over has always had these massive jobs in front of them. The one thing that Leipold's proven, he's won everywhere he's been. He's an organizational guy. He's got great structure, discipline in the program. Very much like Mark Mangino was back in the day. So I think the fans didn't look at the whole, Whitewater to Buffalo. I think they looked at it as, hey, this guy's won everywhere he's been, kind of a blue collar, roll up the sleeves, get after it type guy, not a lot of BS, not a lot of showmanship. He just gets the job done. So he was one of the top 2 guys the whole time that the fans were pulling for. And am I surprised he's doing it this fast? Absolutely, I'm surprised. I mean, I have covered, 6, 7 head coaches, and I've never seen it done this fast, especially with what he inherited.
John, you talk about Jason Bean and his desire to return, but add that into maybe the same conversation with Lance Leipold, because he was somebody last year after the season KU had that bigger schools wanted a piece of.
Yeah, guys, listen, there were 2 jobs open last year, and I don't know where he stood in the final list and how that all worked behind the scene with agents and athletic directors. We don't really know. A lot of that stuff was so kept under wraps. But I mean, listen, there's 2 jobs that scared everybody.
Nebraska and Wisconsin.
Absolutely. Okay. So those are two jobs that everybody said, you know, if these come open, these are scary because Nebraska's got the tradition. They've got the finances. They've got the money. I mean, that's a great place to coach football. He's from Wisconsin. Okay. And what happens? They both come open. Okay. So, I mean, there were some nervous KU fans. Okay. Now, obviously, you start seeing all this stuff about Michigan State, right? You see him tagged on all these national writers' lists. And I got to tell you, I know Michigan State, if they need to, they can go pay $9 million for a coach. And Kansas can't do that. Okay. But I just think that Lance Leipold likes Lawrence, Kansas. I think his family is settled there. His son's a starter on a pretty good football team, a wide receiver at Free State High School. He's a junior. He's got another year of high school. Lance Leipold is in the middle of the new stadium renovations that are going to be hundreds of millions of dollars. That's going to break ground here in about 5-6 weeks. This is his program. This is his deal. So I just think that, you know, I think he's settled in at Lawrence, Kansas.
John, not counting interims, I believe you are on head coach number 7 that you've covered. So just want to.
Well, I was close.
You were close. John, we appreciate the time as always. I'm sure we'll check in with you again soon.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks, John.
That's John Kirby of Jayhawk Slant. Coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit of college basketball.
You know who John sounds like?
Who's that?
Kevin Suits.
Kevin? A little bit. You know, we got another Kevin coming up, Kevin Sweeney of SI.com. We're going to talk college basketball here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln for hour number 3. I'm Ravi, Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me, and we are brought to you by Alumni Hall. Alumni Hall is your ultimate Husker shopping experience, especially as it gets cold out there. You got to get that cold weather Husker gear. Alumni Hall has you covered with the best and largest selection of apparel for the whole family. Adidas, Champion, Columbia. Get some of that cold weather Columbia Husker gear. You're good to go. They've got gifts, accessories, whatever you need. If you're a UNL student, faculty, or military, you get 10% off in store. And as always, you're going to earn cash back with their Hall Pass rewards. Visit their 2 great Lincoln locations, Peace Street downtown or South Point Pavilion, or you can visit them anytime at alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Husker fans shop.
The only time it's okay to use a Hall Pass.
Exactly. We are efforting our friend Kevin Sweeney from SI.com to talk about college basketball here.
Which I told you I'm super excited about because, you know, this time of year is great. And I hope other people think like me because, like, I don't sit back and just do research all year round like John Fanta or, you know, like any of other great guests like Kevin Sweeney, for example. But, like, this is the time where I get to, like, open up the college basketball book for dummies. And I get to ask like very generic questions to just talk about the season as a whole.
Yeah, get a little primer for the season.
Like, oh my goodness, you get to talk about like the best teams to the worst teams to your teams in your conference to, you know, how is the Big East, the Big 12, whatever conference is the best conference. Like you get to ask any question you want about players, this, that, and the other. And more times than not, you won't ever be wrong to ask a question about the health of somebody outside of maybe Keisei Tominaga. That happened yesterday.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it's not too serious. I'm hoping it's a short-term injury.
Right, but just get like the answers you're looking for to look for the future of the season. So that's what I'm looking forward to whenever we get Kevin on the line.
Yeah, you mentioned Nebraska yesterday had their exhibition win over Doane, 84-53. Tominaga did have that ankle injury, but it sounds like it may not be too serious. Joining us now here on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline is Kevin Sweeney. He is covering college basketball for Sports Illustrated. Kevin, how are you this morning?
Good, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. We are excited about college basketball season getting going here pretty soon. Let's start with, there was kind of some big college basketball news this morning. Cooper Flagg ends up committing to Duke. How would you say, I know John Shire has been killing it on the recruiting trail. How would you evaluate the job that he's done in taking over for Coach K here early on?
He's done an awesome job. And, I don't necessarily think obviously Duke has all the advantages built in right now, but at the end of the day, we've seen enough big power brands falter when the legendary coach moves on over the course of college basketball history. So the fact that they're recruiting as well, if not better, than they ever have under Shire is really impressive. And Flag's the type of guy that will give you a chance to compete for a national title no matter what, just because he impacts the game in so many ways. He's an incredibly fun player to watch on, the summer circuits this past year. And, talk about year one under Shire, win the ACC tournament, get a 5 seed despite dealing with a lot of injuries. Year two, they're a preseason top 5 team. And then, heading into year 3 with Flag, it feels like the program's in a really healthy place right now.
Kevin, let's talk about the Big 12 and how powerful they are after all the conference realignment. Yes, you lose Oklahoma, you lose Texas, but adding Houston and Arizona seem like good replacements. How much are you looking forward to watching the new and improved Big 12 conference?
Yeah, I think it's going to be awesome. I mean, obviously, I'll miss the 10-team double round robin schedule that they were able to do the last several years. That I think has something special to it where you play everybody twice. But the league is really accumulating great college basketball brands. And I think that's going to be awesome for the sport. I mean, remember 2 years ago, I think there was a lot of people thinking the Big 12 was going to die. And the fact that not only is it alive, but is doubling down on basketball is great for the national college hoops landscape, right? We'll never have quite the power of the old Big East, right? Because every school that is involved in football is going to make football decisions first. But to have a league that seems equally invested in being great at basketball with brands like Kansas, Arizona, Houston, Baylor, the list goes on, but also, some really big time football powers. I think the combination of that has a chance to be really, really fun.
Kevin, I know that we kind of always take these exhibition or charity games with a grain of salt here. I guess, what do you make of Illinois knocking off the preseason #1 Kansas in their exhibition?
Yeah, I went down and saw that game in Champaign. I thought they looked really good. I mean, obviously, look, Illinois was one of the best teams in the country last year when Terrence Shannon and Coleman Hawkins made threes, right? Like, you look back and they played, they beat UCLA, they beat Texas. Like, the box score there is one of those dudes went nuclear. And that's what they did yesterday. They made 9 threes combined. That's probably not going to happen every night, but I thought Illinois just looked more comfortable, more stable. They had a lot of personalities on that team last year, and I think that's one of the big reasons they overachieved. This team is a lot more level-headed, and I thought they navigated some of the tense moments when Kansas was able to tie the game in the second half and played really well. So they're very deep, they're very athletic, their positional size is really impressive, and Shannon is one of the best players in the country. I think this Illinois team is pretty darn good.
Kevin, speaking of exhibition losses, how clear is it that Rick Pitino's St. John's team is still a work in progress after their loss to a Division II opponent?
It's funny. I mean, they've played 2 games now. They played Rutgers last week and then Pace. Last week they are blowing out Rutgers at the half, and everyone is giving Pitino the national championship in year 1. Now that game goes to overtime. They win the game still. And now you have this D2 game. I think it's going to be ups and downs. I mean, they had some pretty key guys out, 3 potential starters: Jordan Dingle from Yale, Joel Soriano, their big guy, and then RJ Luis is going to be out of bed. He has a broken hand. But that was a surprise. He's a magnificent coach, but anytime you're trying to incorporate 12 new players, there's just going to be moments like that. Maybe not lose to pace moments like you necessarily wouldn't expect, but it's going to be a little bit rocky early. I think they'll be good. I think they'll be a tournament team. I'm not selling all the stock, but yesterday certainly not an encouraging performance.
Kevin, I've held myself back as long as possible. I've got to ask you some Creighton questions now.
A whole 4 minutes.
I have. I've restrained myself incredibly. Creighton, obviously, coming off of that Elite 8 run, very nearly in the Final Four. They bring back some key pieces. They lose a couple key pieces, still ranked in the top 10 preseason. As you look at this Creighton team from a national perspective, I guess, what are your thoughts on them and their potential this season?
Yeah, I think they're right there in the Big East race. I mean, there's not a lot separating them, Marquette, and UConn in my mind. And I also think Villanova could wind up in that category as well with their talent level. They're going to be really hard to guard. Obviously, I think, people nationally probably don't understand how good Stephen Ashworth is.
Mm-hmm.
He's the real deal. And I think
Couldn't
he's
agree
gonna
more.
be in some ways more dynamic than Nembhard was. He may not be a better true point guard, but his ability to shoot the basketball, his ability to create ball screens is as good as anyone in the country. Combine that with Alexander and Shireman, that's an awesome backcourt. Kalkbrenner, one of the most valuable players in the country. I mean, I think this team will be right there. Defensively, some questions, especially with Miller potentially swapping in for Kaluma at the 4 spot. I just think the athleticism there and the physicality that Kaluma brought was probably more valuable on that end. But yeah, Kalkbrenner protecting at the rim, and that will keep the defense in good hands. I think this Creighton team will be really awesome.
Well, maybe try to further the expectation there for me, Kevin. Being seconds away from going to the Final Four last year, do you think Creighton has the firepower to get there this year? Like, are you confident in saying that Creighton is a Final Four team?
I think they're a Final Four level team. That's my great hedge. But I think they're certainly good enough, right? Like when you look around the landscape and you're saying I think there's probably 15 or 20 teams on paper. I say that team has real expectations that they could get to a Final Four. They have the talent, they have the coaching, they have the experience. I think Creighton certainly checks that box.
Kevin, I want to talk with the Big East just a little bit more here. You mentioned UConn being in that same kind of upper tier of the Big East, and rightfully so. They do lose some important pieces from that national title team last year. I guess, do you have any level of concern about them replacing a guy like Sanogo and Hawkins, or do you think just the way they've recruited, they're in good shape moving forward?
I think they're in good shape. I mean, look, it's never easy to replace guys of that caliber.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think maybe the hardest guy to replace for them will be Andre Jackson.
Yeah, fair.
Because his contributions are so difficult to replicate defensively, his passing ability, right? Like they brought in Cam Spencer from Rutgers to be a shooter. He shot 43% last year at Rutgers from 3. If Klingon at the 5 to replace Sanogo, he's obviously going to be really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
But, they had such a great mix last year. They had the athleticism, they had the passing ability, they had the shooting with Hawkins. They had so many ways to beat you. And I think maybe they'll be they won't be quite as dominant this year, but I still think with the talent that they have, particularly up front with Alex Karaban and Donovan Klingon, I think they're going to be really, really competitive in the Big East once again.
Kevin, despite winning the title last year, UConn 1 spot behind Marquette to open the year in the preseason rankings. Do you think Marquette is truly the team to beat in the Big East, or is that conference so strong it's a roll of the dice? Any night this conference is in action.
Yeah, I think it's a toss-up, right? I think they've earned that respect because they won the regular season and the tournament last year, and they have so much back with Tyler Kolek, Cam Jones, and Iguodala up front. I think the big question for them is how do they replace Omax Prosper, their starting power forward last year?
Mm-hmm.
Because he was so valuable defensively. That was not a great defensive team last year, but his athleticism and his ability to guard multiple spots was really key. They're going to replace him with David Joplin, who's more of a scoring wing. I think he could make their offense even harder to stop, but they have to be able to lock down defensively to really win this conference, right? There's going to be cold nights offensively. And so without Omax, that's the thing I'm looking for is how do they defend early in the year?
We're talking with Kevin Sweeney of Sports Illustrated covering college basketball. Kevin, I know you do some NBA draft coverage as well. Looking at the college basketball landscape this year, who are some guys that are playing for high-level teams that you're excited about as far as their NBA draft prospects in the spring?
Yeah, this draft is pretty wide open, particularly from the standpoint that there isn't a ton in the 2023 high school class
mm-hmm.
that has NBA teams super excited. There's one point guard, Isaiah Collier, who's at USC, who people think is going to be awesome. He had a great high school career. But there's some room for returning guys to play their way into the top 10, and that's not super common.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So Donovan Klingon at UConn would be an example of that. Tyrese Proctor at Duke would certainly be another example of that. UConn has a freshman, Stephon Castle, who I think will be in the mix. And then, Baylor, Jacoby Walter, he's a wing that I think will rise pretty quickly. So It's a bit more wide open. Obviously, last year you entered the college basketball season like, all right, Wemby's number one, Scoot Henderson's number two, and Brandon Miller obviously played his way into that. But there was a bit of certainty at the top of the draft, and this year we don't have that early on.
Kevin, a couple of Creighton guys. What do you think the draft ceilings on Trey Alexander and Ryan Kalkbrenner are?
Alexander could maybe play his way into the back end of the first round. I have some questions about him, just explosiveness wise. He's not the shiftiest player, but he's just so skilled that if he has a big time year and helps Creighton win, he'll have an opportunity to play his way into maybe that first round conversation. I see Kalkbrenner more as like a second round, 2-way contract type of guy. I will say I saw his pro day last year in Chicago and was really impressed with how he shot the ball. We'll see if that actually manifests itself into anything during college games. I don't think that's really his plan.
Sure.
But he did look really comfortable stretching the floor, and that's going to be important for his NBA future.
Kevin, Ravi asked you about guys that, will have big careers after the college level. But I'm kind of going to go on the other end of the spectrum here, and maybe they still could have a big career, going pro someday. But are there any players that you're keeping a close eye on to bounce back after a down year last year?
That's a good question. There's a few guys particularly coming off injury, right? Like Justin Moore was an All-American level player at Villanova. Tears his Achilles right before the 2022 Final Four. He came back and was okay down the stretch last year, but wasn't himself. And I think if he's healthy, that's a huge difference maker for them. Excited to see him hopefully bounce back and be healthy. Kind of the same thing. Indiana's point guard Xavier Johnson. He dealt with a foot injury. He's been up and down in his career. If he bounces back, it could be huge for that group. So yeah, I think it's more hunting injuries than anything else. But certainly those guys are good examples of dudes with major potential in college basketball. Just had a tough go of it lately.
Kevin, you mentioned earlier you think there's maybe 15 to 20 teams you would mark as Final Four caliber type teams. Who are some of the teams either towards the back end of that group or maybe even outside of that group that you think have some dark horse Final Four potential?
I think UCLA has kind of flown under the radar, and part of that is they have some eligibility questions. They have 2 international freshmen who are potential first-round picks, Ade Mara from Spain, and then Berke Buyuktinsel, which is going to be a tough pronunciation for everyone this year. Turkey. Those 2 guys are like top 20 level picks. If they're cleared to play, UCLA is going to have as much talent as pretty much anyone in the country. And that's a group right now kind of getting picked 3rd, 4th in the Pac-12, back half of the top 25 nationally. Like that group has the talent to be right there. And I mentioned Villanova earlier. Like Villanova, if Jay Wright was coaching this team, would be a consensus top 5 preseason team, national title favorite. And instead some questions with Kyle Neptune entering year 2. They've got so much talent that I'm inclined to buy in and think Neptune can figure it out and make this team really click.
Kevin, who's a team you take notice of entering this year and can't believe where they are as a program right now? So whether good or bad, it just shocks you to see them way low in the rankings or way up there.
Man, that's a loaded question. I think when you look around and realize that, like when you realize that Miami's been to 2 consecutive Elite Eights, especially after Jim Larrañaga had been, really put on the hot seat. Like people were wondering when was Miami going to push Jim Larrañaga into retirement. To have those 2 seasons back to back and now be a preseason top 15 team, I believe, in the AP poll, have the talent back that they do, have the talent incoming that they do from the portal, and then an international kid, Tyshawn George, who's going to be really good. Like the health of that program has been really, really shocking. I think if you map this thing back a couple of years, because it was certainly not a guarantee. And Larrañaga's just done a tremendous job getting it right, and he seems happy to not be retiring anytime soon.
Yeah, because it's funny that you bring up Miami. I was going to go to another ACC school that I was going to go on the other end of that spectrum and call out UNC. Like after being the number 1 team coming into the coming into the season last year, and now they are 19th in the country, and it just feels like UNC should not be that low. Like that's a blue blood type school that should never be 19th to open the year.
Yeah, and a ton to prove, right? I mean, they've earned being 19th or even lower potentially after what happened last year. But I also have watched some of the tape from their early season stuff. They played a non-D1 team. Yes, again, that's different competition, and everyone understands that. But on paper, this Carolina team could really bounce back with the athleticism that they have, the talent in the backcourt that they have. And I think just ending the Caleb Love relationship, obviously he's super talented, but I think it helped them that he's no longer there and gives them an opportunity to reset, give RJ Davis the keys, and also still have Baycott down low.
Kevin, we've seen a lot of darlings make the Final Four. Florida Atlantic was certainly one of those teams last year. We don't often see those teams kind of repeat that success, but Florida Atlantic, obviously really well regarded, bring a lot back, and they're number 10 in the country this year. How do you view the fortunes of the Owls coming off of that impromptu run?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, they have enough pieces to be really good again, right? This was a top 25 team in the advanced analytics before the NCAA tournament. So it's not like this team came out of nowhere. But at the same time, you just don't look at them talent-wise and say that's a Final Four or a national title level team. And that's the case with all these, mid-major darlings, right? And I've talked to a lot of people who were involved in that Loyola Chicago run in 2018. And one of the things they said was that you just can't replicate or even understand, sometimes until you're out of it, how much pressure every night you were under to live up to the standard you set yourself the previous year. And, FAU has said all the right things. Oh, we're ready for the challenge. We can't wait to get back on the floor. We're prepared to go all the way this time. But I just think it's really going to weigh on them. And that's why I'm at a bit lower on them in the preseason. I still think they're a tournament team. Still think there's a good chance they wind up as a top 25 team. But I don't think people totally understand the challenge of wearing those expectations, particularly as a team that just isn't that talented. They have two kind of fringe pros in John L. Davis and Elijah Martin, but this is not a team that's going to overwhelm anyone with its size, its athleticism. They have to beat people with being together, and I think the challenge of all the expectations will wear on them.
Kevin, you mentioned Caleb Love's name in a previous answer, and I am curious to what he's going to bring to that Arizona team, but maybe more expanded on this question. Who's a transfer that you think is going to make the biggest impact this year? Like, is it just as easy to say it's Hunter Dickinson and that's it? Or is there another guy that you kind of like that's like, no, he's going to have a bigger impact on that team?
Yeah, I mean, Hunter's going to get a 20 and 10. I mean, I didn't think Hunter played that well yesterday against Illinois, and I looked up and he had 22 and 9. Well, that's Hunter Dickinson. I also do buy into a bit of a Caleb Love bounce back. I think Arizona's the right situation for him to be in. But if you're looking for like pure impact on one team, I think Tyler Perry at Kansas State is a guy that people are going to want to know. I mean, they were so good last year in the portal. And that was the big reason why Jerome Tang's team had so much success. And Tyler Perry was the best player on North Texas, which won the NIT. He's a super fun to watch scoring combo guard, undersized, but can really, really shoot the basketball. And I think he's going to average 17, 18 points a game on an NCAA tournament team out of the Big 12. So as transfers go, you can't do much better than that.
And what do you think about Arthur Kaluma at K-State?
I mean, I was down on him by the end at Creighton, maybe unfairly so. I mean, obviously, he was a victim of the expectations put on him, right? I think he's still a good enough player, but the idea that he's going to step in and beat Deontay Johnson for them, that feels really aggressive. I think he has a chance to have a good year, but I don't think he's ready to explode there, if that makes sense.
Kevin, we'll put you on the spot and get you out of here on this. Let's give us a national title prediction for this year. And obviously this is very serious and we'll have to hold you to it.
Maybe this is overreacting to one exhibition game, but Tennessee, I think, has a chance to be awesome. I'd already picked them to win the SEC and be a top 5 team nationally, but if their offense is what it looked like yesterday, particularly given that they were without 2 of their best guards, they just have too much shooting and skill not to be really good.
Give me the guys with the fun pants.
There we go. Kevin Sweeney from Sports Illustrated. We appreciate your time. I'm sure we'll check in throughout the year.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks, Kevin.
That's Kevin Sweeney from Sports Illustrated. Coming up next, it's time for Andrew's favorite game of the week.
I've been dreading this all day.
Shane's World. Coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Hopefully not. It is time for Shane's World here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. It's game time. That means, Andrew, take it away.
I'm going to try to delay this as much as possible. No. Okay, so it's time for Shane's World. Shane gets a prompt. Ravi and I each know the prompt. Then we go back and forth from numbers from 1 to whatever. And we set like a threshold of where we think the amount of things Shane can name in 10 seconds.
Oh, come on,
prompt.
Shane.
Does that make sense? Everybody caught up.
We are wagering on how many things Shane can name out of the prompt we give him.
Ravi keeps
in
the time,
10 seconds.
Right? And then whoever Shane loses for, has to spin the Bean Boozle wheel, pull out a jelly bean, and tell us what the flavor is.
It could be good, could be bad.
Most of the time, it's bad.
Well, for you, most of the time, it's bad.
This dude's gotten birthday cake the past 3 weeks. Have we played this game for 3 weeks?
At least, maybe.
I don't know. It's 2 or 3 weeks.
I don't know, maybe.
You've gotten birthday cake way too many times. Today is the day that changes. So let's play. I'll start off with my first prompt. I'm going to go with this one right here, Rob.
The second to last?
The second to last.
Okay.
I think that could be really funny.
Okay.
Maybe.
I'm going to go with 4.
That seems kind of high.
It does seem high. Because 5 seems even worse. But I'm thinking about things.
I'm tired. I worked out of school.
I'm going to say do it. I'm going to say party on, Shane, with 4.
All right, Shane. I need you to name 4 Nebraska football players. Go.
Harburg, Omar, Alvano, and
Shoot.
Yes!
Come on, Shane.
Yes!
Come on, Shane.
Shane cuts up audio of these players every day.
I know.
I can only name 3. Yes, Shane.
All right, here we go.
Omar, Fedoni.
But don't, come on, man. You do this.
He loves himself some Omar.
He does this every time where he names about 12 guys or about 12 things.
Oh,
Peach or Barf.
AG.
Oh,
no.
no. Peach or Barf.
Is it that one? Or is it, yeah,
Miles.
the speckles, right?
Yeah, the strawberry banana has speckles too. It's the
Cooper.
darker of the 2. Yeah, I'd go with that
This one here?
Yeah, I hope that's either it could also be dead fish.
Yeah, I got my spit cup ready.
You got to chew at least 3
times. 3 times. Okay.
Come on, baby. I'm so curious.
I'm not Catholic, but
you also did the sign of the cross the wrong way.
So I'm not Catholic. I'm doing it for the camera because it's reversed. It's mirrored.
And then you should start down low.
Ooh, all right, here we go.
That's no smell.
Sniffing it.
This is so awesome. I love being on this end. He's chewing a what? Oh no. Oh no.
I think it was dead fish.
Oh no. How do you not react? Like this is like a normal thing?
I mean, it's not good.
But you there's no
It wasn't
no gagging, there's no coughing, there's no
It wasn't like acidic, so I don't think it was barf. So I think I might have got dead fish on accident.
They got a pickle on the chicken sandwich.
I mean, listen, I'm not like excited about it, but
yeah, but you're not even why aren't you reacting in a negative way?
I was
Are
expecting.
you sure it wasn't strawberry banana smoothie?
No, it was definitely a bad one. It was definitely a bad one.
Peach or barf, dude. If
It wasn't barf. Let me see what my other
I
options
kind
are.
of want to smell your cup. Is that weird?
Wow.
Shane, cut that out. It might have
Yeah,
been.
right, I'm
Is there
working it.
another one that would have been? No, it was definitely either dead fish or I don't think it was barf. I think it was dead
I'm gonna
fish.
do this. This is oh, Oh no, that's dead fish. Oh, why did I do that? Oh, how did you think that's not? Dude, that made me gag just smelling the cup.
I mean, it's not good. It did take me like 5 chews before I even realized what it was.
My stomach hurts. Why did I do that? Oh my! Are you serious?
That thing wet.
I mean, listen, it's not good, but it's not terrible.
Dude, I felt.
I thought you were going to throw up last time when you got dead fish.
I felt the hot dog in my stomach start to come back up. All right, let's do another one. Let's do another one.
Listen, I didn't think it was that bad.
You said you had a prompt, right?
Yes, I did.
Why didn't that affect you?
I mean, listen, I didn't love it.
Freaking
What's your
bats.
prompt? Okay.
Non what you have.
Non that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll have to specify.
We will.
that to
Yeah,
him.
we'll specify it to him.
I think Shane can name 3.
Lucky for you guys, that day is not today.
Party on. Name
Yeah, dang. I was going to say 2 at first.
3. Shane, you have to name 3 non-fast food chain restaurants. Go.
Fazoli's,
That's fast food. They've got a drive-through.
Paisans.
Not a chain.
They have to be chains.
Well, what else would
time,
they be? That's the
time,
prompt, Shane.
Cracker Barrel.
There's one at like 15 seconds. That's time.
Shane, hear me out here.
We're going to do this thing again. We're going to keep this thing rolling.
For 2 seconds that have come off the clock toward the end, you said they have to be chains. After the prompt was
non-fast food chain restaurant.
Oh, I'm so happy! Like maybe Applebee's,
Chili's.
I mean, just
Cracker Barrel
Ruby
works.
Tuesdays,
Cracker Barrel works.
TGI Fridays. Like you should just name all of them that look
All
the
of-
same.
Olive Garden.
A bunch of places that I never ever go to.
Unbelievable. Why did I say 3? Should have said 1. No, I should have.
Can
said
you see
none.
me at the Cracker Barrel or at? I
All
don't
right,
know.
I'm gonna
any of
go
those?
since we haven't.
I mean, they're
had it
probably
yet and
pretty
it's on the
good, but
border,
yeah,
let's
that's
do
fine.
buttered popcorn or rotten egg.
Ooh, you're torturing yourself a little bit here.
Well, it's either that or liver and onions.
That's true. You already did the liver and onions, and you were not a fan.
It's this guy. Here we go.
Down the hatch.
Not down the hatch. Just chew them.
Down the hatch. You're doing a lot of chewing here. Rotten eggs? Or is the butter popcorn just not good?
I just think the butter popcorn sucks.
So I said that when we started this. I was like, the butter popcorn's not a good flavor.
It doesn't taste like rotten egg.
Yeah, it's probably butter popcorn. It's just not good. I've had butter popcorn jelly beans
Like,
before, and
you know
they're
what that tastes like?
they're not good.
It tastes like eating chalk.
Oh, weird. I mean, at least you didn't gag this time. That's a win, right?
It's butter popcorn.
If it was rotten egg, you'd
Yeah, I'd know.
you'd have a visceral reaction
I'd
to
know.
it. I think.
But it tasted as if it was
tastes
like
weird, though.
horrible
Yeah.
at first.
Yeah.
So that's all right,
Okay.
I guess.
That's livable. You can do that.
I'd rather have kettle corn.
I think that's fair.
All right, let's go with the top one here, Ravi.
Ooh, okay. Shoot. I'm gonna say 3.
Hello, friend.
Like this?
You like
Shake
that?
it up a little bit.
You can't Kirk Cousins? R.I.P. to his Achilles. You like that?
I think Shane can name 4.
You think he can name 4?
I couldn't even name 4 Nebraska football players.
That's true. That's true. That's accurate.
But I think this is Shane's forte.
I think this is more up his alley. Go ahead and name 4. Party on.
Why didn't you say 5, man?
Because I don't feel good about it.
Shane, in 10 seconds, can you please do this for me, please?
I'd prefer you didn't.
Can you name 4 video games?
Go.
Halo, Madden, MLB Live, NBA 2K.
Shoot.
What is MLB Live? I mean, I'll count it for MLB because MLB is
Yeah.
a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But
the MLB.
it's the show.
Yeah, it's the show.
I think there
MLB.
used to be an MLB Live.
Did
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, the show's 2K. I think MLB Live was the EA Sports version.
Shane, my man. All right.
All right, here we go, Shano.
I was like, Shane, just think of sports, man. Just think of sports. It's all
I thought
needed.
I thought he was gonna go old school and go like Mario, King, or not King Kong, Donkey
Yeah.
Kong.
Mario, Zelda, Sonic.
You know those don't count now, Shane. All right, spinning the wheel. Here we go. We have juicy pear or booger.
Juicy Pear or Booger.
It's like the slightly green one, right?
Just one of
This
the
guy
green ones
here.
on top. Yeah.
All right, here we go. Here we go.
I'm curious because I bet Booger is
not
low key worse than we think. You don't
think
think
so?
it's that bad?
See, that was the
That's
one
where you were leaning there.
Yeah, that's the one where I was looking at. I was like, I mean, so like toothpaste wouldn't be bad. That's probably the best bad one.
I may just eat one of those.
Yeah, it's like I don't care. Yeah, so I think Booger is the second best bad one. Down the hatch, here we go. Juicy Pear, baby. All day, every day.
I mean,
all I do is win.
Daniel put it perfectly. I lose even when I win.
Yeah, you do. You do. I don't know what to tell you. That's actually pretty good, the Juicy Pear. I like that.
Sure is. Now I'm going to look to try to dig for one, and I'll end up with Booger.
Coming up next,
Shane's World.
We've got the Warhorse Sportsbook Sports Cleanup to wrap up the show here on a Monday on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up the show here on a Monday on the Warhorse Sportsbook. On Hurrdat Sports Radio. It's time for the Warhorse Sportsbook Sports Cleanup. Ravi, Lulla, Andrew Rogers here. We're on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. A lot of stuff happened this weekend.
By the way,
what's up?
Can I just say just one thing about Shane's World? The
Hit me
game
with it.
Okay, so that's a tough game. I even tried to prepare for it over the weekend. I was like, I was just thinking through everything that Andrew could possibly think of that's going on in Shane's world.
Man,
and I was like,
through my head. You'll never know.
I was like, well, I got the Raiders tonight. I got the Lions tonight. So he's probably going to ask, name 5 Detroit Lion guys. So I'm sitting there just rolling through the roster all day yesterday, checking it. And I didn't even get that.
Imagine if we said name like 3 lions, because I don't think he could have named 3 lions. Like if he didn't just tell me that,
sure,
I would say I think that would be a good cap for him. 3, maybe even less, like 2. And if he just rattled off like 14, I would be so impressed.
He rattles off the 2 deep in 10 seconds. You're like, what what happened?
Yeah, he's just back here. Goff, Montgomery, Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, DJ Chark, Sam Laporta, and just keeps going. And I'm like, what?
And we're just like, what is happening? It is time.
Does Dan Campbell count?
As I mentioned, it is time for that Warhorse Sportsbook Sports Cleanup. Warhorse Sportsbook, the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets. Make sure you go and download the Warhorse Casino app for all the live odds and things like that, and then take that app to the casino and place your bets. Couple things. So I'm watching the World Series at a cigar bar on Friday night, game 1, and you had that incredible bottom of the 9th homer by Seager to tie it up. And then bottom of the 11th, your guy, Adolis Garcia, I was just
He's not my guy.
I'm not anymore. As soon as he hit I almost texted you. As soon as he hit that, I was like, it's your boy. Love a World Series walk-off. Can't be mad about that. Love a World Series walk-off.
I sent my mom a picture of Adolis Garcia in a Cardinals uniform after that happened. And I said, remember what once was?
Just a crying emoji. Just
one tear.
Just single solitary tear dripping down your face. Obviously, game 2 wasn't as exciting, but 1-1 heading into tonight's game 3.
Did you see the side-by-side, though, that was created after game 1?
I'm not sure I did.
What happened in Yankee Stadium?
Oh, I don't think so.
Diamondbacks played the Yankees in 2001.
Okay.
The World Series.
Back in the day.
So in the 9th inning, I don't know if there's one out. I think there was one out when this ball was hit, and there were 2 outs when Seager hit it. But a 2-run shot to tie the game by the Yankees on the D-backs, just like it was the Rangers on the D-backs, and then a walk-off home run by Jeter to short right field.
Yeah, it was that was Byung-Hyun Kim for Arizona in 2001, who had been really, really good all year. And man, they blew
but it was the exact same inning.
Yeah, that's
and
super bizarre.
Think about it.
Yeah.
We're going with the World Series script, right? The Arizona Diamondbacks script. What happened in 2001, Ravi?
The Arizona Diamondbacks
Game 7 walk-off.
Ended up winning. Luis Gonzalez ended up winning.
So if that happens.
Yeah. I mean, then we know the script.
How about the this is my last point on game 1 of the World Series, but Adolis Garcia's home run, somebody made it Moneyball. Like Adolis Garcia, but Moneyball.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite.
I just love, when they put the Moneyball music behind it.
Moneyball just as much as I do.
Yeah, I love that movie. Yeah, absolutely. I love when they put the the Scott Hatterberg home run music behind
That's
any
exactly
big
what they
baseball
did.
play. Oh, it's incredible.
They made Adolis Garcia money ball.
Also on Friday night, the Nebraska high school playoffs got off and rolling. Not a ton of surprises in Class A, at least.
Did you get out to any games, or did you stay in the warmth?
I didn't. I was too cold, man. So I ended up working late, and by the time I got done, it was past kickoff time for pretty much. I mean, it was like 7:38 by the time I got done working on Friday, and so at that point, I was like, I think I just have to call it here. But obviously, West Side rolled over Prep 54-6. Millard West took care of Millard North. That was a close game earlier in the year, but Millard West took care of business. The highlight of the week was that Omaha North over Gretna game.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a really, really nice win by Omaha North, a team that I watched a week before, hardly put up any points.
Yeah.
On Elkhorn South.
And
actually, no, they got shut out. So it was 0.
It was a double overtime game, and the catch by Donovan Jones was unreal. Brings it in with one hand in the back corner of the end zone. Really impressive from Omaha North there. Omaha North's interesting, right? Because they've got the line play to play with anybody. Circo can be really good at times at quarterback. Obviously, you got the skill at Sebastian Circo, but you got the skill at Donovan Jones at wide receiver as well. They're really interesting. Bellevue West starting to play better. They go
down Papia La Vista.
Yep, 48-34. That's and they struggled early too. I got to give them a little bit of credit there because earlier in the year when they would kind of make some mistakes, it seemed like they would implode a little bit. They seem to have improved that.
And then how about
later in the
Grand
season?
Island's win over Kearney?
Yeah, that's a huge win. 29-19 over Kearney. That's obviously a huge rivalry game anyway. So that's a big win for Grand Island over Kearney. Lincoln East took out Lincoln Southeast. Those were pretty much all. Elkhorn South rolled 42-8 in that one. Millard South rolled as well. So it appears the collision course between Westside and Millard South for rematches is still on. Although this Westside Bellevue West game this week is going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's going to have a lot of eyes on it, right? Because, you look at one end of the spectrum and you get 3 Husker commits on the offensive side of the ball. And then you look on the other side at Omaha West Side and you're like, well, they have Caleb Benning, who is arguably the best player in the state. And you have a quarterback that is still kind of fringe.
Anthony Rizak, who obviously I love. You've got Teddy Rizak on the other side, who is a
D1,
Notre Dame
D1
commit. Christian Jones, who's a year behind that class, but he's also a high D1 guy. So that's a really interesting matchup. Obviously, Westside took care of business in resounding fashion earlier this year. It'll be interesting to see if Bellevue West is able to hang in there better than they did in their earlier matchup. Class B, real quick, not a ton of
nothing really crazy.
Yeah, I mean, Scott took care of Gross.
I'm pretty sure the chalk hit in C1, if I'm correct. I think everybody in C1 who was, or at least the highest ranked team coming into bracket play, I think the chalk took it.
It looks about right. I think you're right there. I think you're right. Not a ton of and you see that you see that a lot in the early rounds of the high school playoffs. Usually the chalk does hold at least through that first round. This second round here on Friday is where it starts to get really interesting. It's gonna be tough again to get out to any of those games because I've got the Creighton exhibition. You've got UNO hockey again this week.
Always UNO hockey left and right.
I know, so it's going to be tough to get out there, but we will have you covered on Hurrdat Sports. We have plenty of
game
great
of the week coverage this week.
Got plenty of great, which I have to imagine going to be Westside Bellevue West again. I would think.
You'd probably guess
That's
that'd
a
probably
huge
be
one.
a good one.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
We'll see. I don't make those decisions. That's just
yeah. Because looking back at Class A just for a moment,
at the bracket,
there was a different game to go to. Maybe Omaha North, Millard South, but Westside Bell West.
Omaha North, Millard. Omaha West Side and Millard South has a
little more oomph to it. Right?
Yeah, has a little bit more oomph to it. But that Millard South game is interesting as they play Omaha North because Omaha North is Omaha North's a little
I mean,
spicy.
shoot, what do you think of Bennington Norris? Like
Ooh.
Norris put up a ton of points on
They
Northwest. And now
did.
when we talked with Sauter last Friday, that was expected
Yeah.
to be a high scoring game.
Yep.
But Norris put up a 50 bomb.
Yeah, they did.
Now, I'm not saying that's the game that it gets attended. To me, it still leans Omaha West Side, Bell West.
Yeah, one of those two games in Class A, I think Omaha West Side, Bell West, or Omaha North, Millard South is, I think, the marquee matchup.
But
Man,
there's just still a ton of good games left on this schedule.
I know. I wish
And the deeper we get into bracket play, the better.
I wish I could get out to some of those. I think I'm going to end up at Creighton for the exhibition, though, as I'll be on the call for a few games this year.
Are you
so
guys going?
Probably need to make sure I see him before, because I'm doing the opener on the 7th. So I need to make sure I see him before we get going there. But no, it was. I'm excited though for the Class A playoffs to keep on rolling. Man, did we miss anything else from the weekend that?
Well, I can touch on UNO hockey.
Yeah,
real fast
let's hit that. They go
the Mavs,
a tie and a loss.
Yeah, that was weird. The tie was kind of weird. Like I didn't understand the draw, and I'm gonna ask my guy tonight at Topgolf because we got a little playoff action.
Okay.
If you're interested in covering something, Ravi, tonight,
some playoffs.
Let's go to Topgolf for some playoffs. Some playoff. I don't even know what to call it. Games like
matchups.
Yeah, sure. We'll just call it how it is. Lax playoff lax matchups. But no, they drew 2-2. Game 1 went to a 7-round shootout, which ended up 1-0 in the shootout. I mean, just talk about a bunch of good goalie play.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then on Saturday, things kind of tailed off for the Mavs. They lost 4-0. But that first one had me intrigued because I'm like, do you just draw everything in the regular season? And then in the playoffs, that's where penalty like shootouts actually matter toward your record? Or is it because Ohio State isn't a conference opponent? That's what I need to figure out.
Yeah, you have to report back because I'm not sure on that.
But really good showing by just Maverick Nation as a whole. With everything going on, high school playoffs and it being cold outside and the Huskers being at home this week, they had like 6,000 people in the building both nights.
Oh, you love to see it. You love to see it. I'm sure we'll talk to someone from Omaha this week as well. Get a little inside scoop there on the
Western Michigan this week
hockey program. Yeah, another big matchup. We will be back tomorrow. That's all we have for today on Hurrdat Sports Radio.